Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joel Moran and I'm here with River Brown and John Tortorelli, and this is episode 303. In this episode, we are going to give our predictions for the NFC North and preview the Lions, Packers, Vikings, and Bears for the upcoming 2023 NFL season. As you can see right now, it's Riv and John here. Dehls is going on vacation tomorrow, and Drew is currently in Switzerland. Should hope to get Drew back by like the 20th of the month. After that, and then Dehls, he'll be gone for like 2
we're
weeks.
missing like the whole crew, man. So, we have John here. Drew comes back. Dehls leaves us tomorrow, so we will be still missing a guy. So we won't be back in the studio together till like September.
Yeah, until the start of the NFL season. Well, we have a lot of great content heading your guys' way. Tomorrow we have a special guest on the podcast, former NBA player. You guys will find out who it is tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a basketball podcast. We'll do the interview with him, and then we'll talk about some of the latest stuff like James Harden and his crazy video in China.
Oh, and for whoever's in DC, we'll be in DC on Saturday. Me, Joel, and John. So if you're around, hit us up. Maybe we might link, might not. Never know.
We'll be in DC for the Big Three playoffs. So we're gonna, you guys seen that we had Ice Cube on the podcast, so we got invited out there to shoot some content for the Big Three. So we'll be out there and hopefully make a lot of great connections. There's going to be a lot of great players. Joe Johnson's going to be there. Gilbert Arenas going to be there. Steven Jackson. It's going to be a really fun time.
Yes, sir.
Hey, John, what do you got to say?
Bottle King.
Yeah, no, it's a shirt. I don't work there.
Okay.
It's my brother Nick.
Nick.
He works there?
Nah, he didn't either.
So where'd you get your shirt from?
I have no idea. He thought it was cool to pretend he worked at Bottle King back in like 2017. I don't know.
What is Bottle King's alcoholic store?
Yes.
Okay. Is it like a Waldwick thing?
Where is it? Yeah.
No.
Never heard of it in my life.
Never heard of it?
No.
There's a couple.
Where?
At least one in the area.
You think so?
Positive.
In this area.
I can tell you.
Okay.
For sure.
You ever get scared driving around this area, John?
Hackensack?
Yeah.
The south side of Hackensack. We in the
You ever
south
been to
side
Newark?
right now.
Yeah.
You get nervous in Newark?
No.
Like the hood?
I don't get nervous in the hood.
What about Patterson?
No, not quite.
Okay.
Shit, that's a lie. I get nervous in the hood. You don't get nervous in the hood?
I do. I get a little, somebody look at you wrong way when you in the car. You're like,
I keep my eyes forward. I'm not looking to the side at all.
Okay, John, you just move like as I get why.
You're
It's
fearless,
understandable.
John.
You are fearless. Cops always got you.
That's crazy. That's not
Now, man, this is going to be a really great episode. NFC North prediction. Last podcast on a football podcast, I told you and Dehls, I'm not sure about the Packers if I'm going to have them winning the division in 2023. But you know what? I only said that because I wanted to create intrigue for this episode. I wanted to hit you guys with a little turn on like I'm turning on a side street. So we're going to give our NFC predictions right now to start off the show, and then basically explain throughout the show why we have each team slotted when we do our previews. So to preview the NFC North, my predictions for the division: the Packers finishing first at 10-7, the Lions at second, 9-8, the Vikings at 7-10, and the Bears at 7-10. But I've been going back and forth on it. I think I'm giving Vikings 8-9, and I'll give Bears 7-10. So Bears will finish last in the division.
You want to go, John, or do you
Hit
want
it.
to? Okay. So I also, because I remember last episode you gave me a little bit of a scare, not believing in Green Bay anymore, but now you've come back to the form of Green Bay's winning division. So I'm glad we're on that side together. I have Green Bay also sitting at 10-7. I have the Bears coming in at 8-9 in second place. I have the Vikings also coming in second place, tying 8-9, but whoever obviously wins more. And then I have the Lions coming in at 7-10.
I feel like this is the hardest division in football to predict. Because last year the Vikings won 13 games, almost all of which were one score. The Vikings are a weird team inherently, but then you have the Bears who could legitimately go worse the first this year. They could also be a 6-win team too if Justin Fields doesn't take that step forward. So for me, I had the Vikings still winning this division, going 10-7. Second place, I had the Lions also going 10-7. Packers third, going 9-8, and then the Bears last, going 8-9. I think it's going to be a relatively tight division with a high floor,
for sure.
but I don't see any of these teams really having a true 12-13 win ceiling like last year.
Well, right now the Packers line is at 7.5 wins. That's the betting odds. The betting number, and the Bears are at 7.5 as well. The Vikings, I believe, 8.5, and the Lions at 8.5 or 9.5. One of those. It probably is 8.5 because 10 wins for the Lions is a lot. I will say
there's a lot of interesting like ideals with this division. There's a lot of storyline with this division. Green Bay, new quarterback. Chicago, can Fields take the leap? Detroit, is the hype legit? Minnesota, can they still keep afloat with that offense, still be dangerous? So it's so much excitement and such different things in this division. It's hard to predict. I mean, any of these teams can go be the worst in the division. Any of these teams could be the best. The potential is definitely there. But I think with the young teams in this division, it's definitely exciting to see these young teams see what they can do. And hopefully one of these teams can climb to the top.
So you have Green Bay number 1.
Yeah, I think Jordan Love will be good. I don't think he'll be what you think. I think Aaron Rodgers is still a top 10 quarterback in football, but I think Aaron Rodgers of last year was probably not a top 10, probably was bottom 20, and I think Jordan Love, he's better than that, which I think he can be. And I think if he can just be a game manager for his first year, I think Green Bay can comfortably stay afloat, win them games. They do have some talent on the defensive end. Offensively, they got guys coming in year 2. They have a solid running back core. Receivers, Watson and Dobbs, can have big years. So I think Green Bay has a lot, and I think they can definitely get to 10-7. They were, they won 9 games last year, and Aaron Rodgers wasn't his form. They didn't have receiving core. The guys were dropping balls in the beginning of the year. So I think this team can definitely still get back to that level with Jordan Love as long as he's serviceable.
So Green Bay has only missed the playoffs 6 times since 2000, and I'm with you guys. I think Jordan Love has been totally overly disrespected through the years because of the situation he was drafted into. But to me, it's not Jordan Love that's going to hold this team back. It is their defense. As a Steeler fan, I can relate to dog shit coordinators with Matt Canada, and I look at the Packers defense last year, Joe Barry, and this Fangio-style defense. Part of it was injuries. Rashawn Gary goes down. He's one of the best DNs in the NFL. But all things considered, the scheme, the system, it does let down big time for the type of personnel they have. And when looking at this type of division, I think coaching matters a ton. They've got the offensive coach in LaFleur, but you have to have some, I think at least in this type of division with the Vikings upgrading on the offensive end, you're going to have to be a lot better this year defensively.
So you have the Lions winning division, correct?
I do.
You have the Lions, okay.
That's interesting. That's for them, I think that's expecting their defense to take a leap. And offensively, they can, because Jameson Winston's going to miss the first 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's suspended.
And then, they got a lot of young talent, so you're expecting those year 2 leaps to come in. So the Lions are tough. I like that. That's a wild card.
Lions are a good team. I think this division is going to be extremely close. I feel very comfortable in the Packers. I want to preview them later, so I don't want to give too much away. But we're starting off with the predictions just so you guys know where we're at, and then we're going to preview the teams. But before we do that, preseason week 1, we just finished the first week of preseason. This segment is going to be a segment we're going to do throughout the season. It's called Stock Up and Stock Down. You guys know that we're partnered with Mojo, which is basically an app where you can invest into these players like their stocks. They're also going to have daily fantasy contests throughout the season, and that's going to be available in 30 states. You can click the link in our bio to join the wait list, and we'd really appreciate it. We're almost at 50 referrals right now. We're at 5th place. So if we get to first place.
Oh, you want me to cook up again? Cause
you could try to cook up.
I went on a tandem the other day. I'm texting everybody like, yo, just do that for me. Yeah. So I'll try again, But this is the easiest way to integrate Mojo into our content because, every week there are players that play well. There are players that play bad. So stock up, stock down. It's basically just to play on that. So stock up after preseason week 1. I'll start first. I think Anthony Richardson. I think he showed the Colts enough that he has enough command of the offense to be the starting quarterback, and they named him the starting quarterback for week 1. A lot of people thought it was going to be Gardner Minshew, but the fact that it's AR, I think that stock is up, and I think he'll play well. I'm sorry. I was looking at messages. So you went stock up, you went
Anthony
AR.
Richardson.
He actually he's the starter. They announced that. Shout out. Sorry. Messed up. We're here. We're back.
To build off that point, Anthony Richardson to me shouldn't be starting week 1. But if there's any coach I'd want him to start for, it probably would be Shane Steichen. Looking at what he did with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, and also assuming Jonathan Taylor's playing week 1, that could be the best rushing duo in the entire NFL. I mean, AR is basically Cam Newton to me physically. He's going to have the right type of coach, the right scheme. And the offensive line was a huge issue last year, but a lot of that had to do with injuries. If they're healthy this year, that's not going to be what holds them back. So you pair that up with Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr., Jelani Woods, and Josh Downs. It's a good enough receiving core that I think he could surprise some people, but it's going to be an absolute roller coaster.
You know, AR in his debut, he made some throws, like some dimes. A couple of those guys, your man Pierce dropped a smooth one.
Pierce is good, though.
He's good. No, he's good. My stock-up player, I'm going to go Sam Howell. You know, I think what he showed in preseason was poise. He showed he was good in the pocket. You know, he made some good throws. And that's all they need him to be. I mean, he's coming in with Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, solid running back core. Like, he's coming in with some weapons. And not many rookies can come in. Like, we don't see Bryce Young coming in with a number one, up-and-coming number two. Like, we don't see a lot of that. Even AR, you know, he has Michael Pittman Jr., but Pierce still has to prove himself and stuff like that. So not a lot of year two, year one guys come in with this type of weapons. And I think Howell, with the experience he had in college and coming in the way he played in the preseason, this is my guy to definitely come in a division like that and just be serviceable for a team that needs a quarterback.
Big time. They've already built up the defense. For me, one of the guys that's really stood out so far in preseason, week one, was Tank Dell, rookie wide receiver out of Houston for the Texans. You look at the receiver core, it's Nico Collins, John Mechie coming back this year for his de facto rookie season. John Mechie, thank you. And guys like Robert Woods and Noah Brown, which opens the door for a guy like Tank to come in and replace Brandon Cooks as that explosive, short to intermediate, just he's going to separate often. And given the fact that C.J. Stroud's a rookie, so you want to get the ball out quickly, I think that's going to be one of his favorite targets. And another one for me, it may come off as a little bit of Steelers bias, but I do think George Pickens is going to take a big step forward this year. There's some people like Ryan Clark out there talking crazy, saying he's more talented than Justin Jefferson, but I strongly believe...
That was a Steeler guy.
Yes, I strongly believe Matt Canada's actually going to look his way, because last year there were weeks where he was barely getting targeted, but there are games where he's catching 60, 70% of contested catches. He's shown a little bit of improvement, too, after the catch, which was his one deficiency, because he's now 2 years removed from a torn ACL. The further he's off of that injury, the more chemistry he built with KP, the better the O-line gets, the healthier Najee is. I think this entire Steelers offense is going to completely level up. The number one weapon is going to be GP.
So George Pickens, you're counting on him to level up. So this is Would You Rather George Pickens edition. I'm going to name some names. First name is Tyquan Thornton.
It's insane.
I'm going George Pickens for sure.
Comfortably. Yeah. Justin Jefferson. We just seen Ryan Clark say that he's more talented than him.
There's never a damn Pickens over Justin Jefferson.
Insane. Jettis is off to the best start we've ever seen by a wide receiver.
No, he is. Jettis is different. That was a crazy take. Deontay Johnson.
Ooh.
I still like Deontay Johnson better than George Pickens.
I like the ceiling of Pickens, so I'm going to go George Pickens.
Deontay's already developed into the player he's going to be. That's top 20 receiver, but Pickens, he's got a true number one potential, I think. So I'm going GP. For sure.
I got Deontay Johnson. Mike Williams.
I think Mike Williams is kind of who we've known he's going to be. Pickens kind of has that same frame, but I think he can get much better. I'm going to go Pickens.
I'm also going GP.
I think Mike Will is a little underrated, man. I'm going to go Mike Will right here. Garrett Wilson.
I'm not thinking twice about it.
Yeah, Garrett.
He's one of them ones. I'm not thinking
that
twice
is
about
the
that.
receiver, I think, in this class.
Now we're going to get into George Pickens' draft class, so I'm going with Garrett Wilson as well. Next up, Chris Olave.
I'm going Chris.
I'm going Chris Olave.
You look at the quarterbacks, though. Andy Dalton's out. Derek Carr is in. I don't know if that's a long-term solution. The Saints don't really seem to prioritize their future at all. I'm going with this KP, the GP connection, not because GP may be a clearly better player, but I trust the Steelers a whole lot more.
Of course you do. Shocker.
They've got direction.
That's crazy. Yeah. Chris Olave is
he's different. No, he's different.
Yeah. He's really a wide receiver one. He was that as a rookie. Yeah, he's different.
He will be.
And Derek Carr has supported wide receiver ones throughout his career. He has.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Jerry Jeudy.
It's just, when is the Jerry Jeudy noise gonna finally be realistic? You know, when is it gonna be? When is he ever gonna pop out and be this receiver that we thought he was the best receiver coming out of college? You know, he was in that class at Alabama room. They kept talking about Jerry Jeudy. Now you see it. He may not be the best. He might be the worst. You know, I'd probably go. I'm gonna go George Pickens.
When we talk about Jeudy, we forget he missed half his sophomore year, but He basically is a poor man's Deontay right now. I'm going GP.
I'm going with George Pickens. Drake London.
Drake's nice.
I'm going with Drake London.
Drake's
That's
nice.
a situation where you can say the quarterback play can hold him back.
Arthur Smith is there, though.
But I have more optimism in that offense as a whole.
I'm going to go Drake here.
Shit, I went GP over Chris Olave. So
You
I
have
gotta
to go.
him over Drake too.
You really do.
Do I? Okay.
I think Olave is the best in his class. So far. Obviously, it can change.
It's between him and Garrett. It really is. Christian Watson.
I'm going to go GP.
I'm going on Christian
These
Watson.
names are really close.
Christian's nice.
For GP versus Drake, I'm going GP. For GP versus Watson, these are two number one receivers in the making with promising franchise quarterbacks.
Kenny
Shit.
Pickett, huh? that's
Dude.
yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Just
Shit.
Can I answer, John?
at any point, you know, it's would you rather?
I'm thinking about the coaching
You're thinking too
situation. I'm going George Pickens over.
You knew you were going George
Yeah,
Pickens. to
right. Like he
start,
tried to
right?
overthink
Yeah.
it. Like he tried to make it look close.
And Jahan Dotson is the last name we're going to go with.
He's a touchdown
gonna-
merchant, and he doesn't play much games. Well, he didn't play much games last year. I'll go GP.
Jahan Dotson, to me, is underrated, too. I'm going to go
He's
Jahan
nice.
Dotson.
How many games did he miss last year? 7? He only started in 10. I'm going to go with GP, but Dotson is going to be one of the best slots in the game. He's a good player.
Now, to talk about stock down, I mean, he's arguably the talk of preseason football, off-season football right now, and that's Trey Lance. Last football podcast, we had a heated debate here between me, Riv, and Dehls. Riv was more so on the heated side because of Brock Purdy, who's been an interception machine in training camp for the 49ers. And Dehls, of course, Trey Lance is his guy. So he wants to make it seem like Trey Lance hasn't had this opportunity. He's getting the short end of the stick. When in reality, you know, Trey Lance just can't win a job. If this was Trevor Lawrence and he missed this much time, I'm sure Trevor Lawrence would have went into camp and he would have not even made it a question that he's the best quarterback. But stock down has to be Trey Lance. In the last month, he's down 25% on Mojo. And I mentioned this last podcast, but if Trey Lance doesn't pan out for the 49ers, that's going to be looked at as one of the worst trades in NFL history. They traded 3 first-round picks to move up to number 3 to go and get Trey Lance. Those first-round picks became Micah Parsons, Cole Strange, and Brian Breesy. And the Dolphins used those picks that the 49ers gave them to trade for Tyreek Hill and to draft Jalen Waddle and to trade for Bradley Chubb.
Remember the 10 picks after Trey Lance, too. Now, I was a Trey Lance supporter coming out of college, but those guys were Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Penei Sewell, J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, Devonta Smith, Justin Fields, Micah Parsons, and Rashawn Slater. So when you look at how stacked that draft class was, to go all the way in, you completely strike out, you get hit in the face, you break your nose potentially. It's remarkable they're as good a team as they are now, but that does set them back. It's an absolute shame because now you're going to look at Brock, and I'm not the biggest Brock Purdy believer, but you're looking at him similar to Jimmy Garoppolo once he gets off that rookie deal. So it's a tough spot right now.
That's actually nuts that they traded all that for Trey Lance. I mean, that's a lot of great players, man.
Yeah.
I don't know who they would have got if they would have just sat, you know, because I feel like some of those guys like Chase Waddle were still going that high.
Chase with Brendan Ayuk and Debo and Kittle.
Michael Parsons would probably still go before, but I think like missing out on, because Trey Lance would have probably took one of their spots, so missing out on one of those players is tough. You hate to see it. I mean, luckily for the Niners, you know, Shanahan's a genius. They still got Kittle, they still got Debo, Brandon Ayuk. They do well in that department. Defensively, they're still elite, so they're still going to be a great team regardless of their quarterback. But you hate the fact that you kind of whiffed on, you know, potentially Trey Lance, and that does suck because not only did you not get the chance to groom him into the quarterback you want him to be, he hasn't been playing enough because he's been injured in the season. So you definitely hate that for both parties because Trey Lance's career never really got to take off.
I don't blame San Francisco either. Like, they can't control that nasty ankle injury. They did the right thing. They can develop quarterbacks. There's just so many variables that go into it every single time you draft one that a lot of it is out of your control. And so I kind of feel bad for them in some ways, but What do you got?
I mean, if your quarterback stinks in training camp, that's
Right, but to me, a lot of his lack of reps and confidence, where he's overthinking, he's not dialed in, he's not reacting to.
I mean, based off his like in his preseason, he held the ball too long, cost him a couple sacks. You know, those drop interceptions were literally on him. He's reading the field wrong. Like a lot of it, you could say, like people were saying, you know, add context. The offensive line was bad. Well, 2 of the sacks was his fault. He held the ball too long. There were plays that he could have easily made, you know, dink and dunk plays. He just refused to make the play. Even one play, I remember the commentator was talking about, he had it, and he just pulled it back and just didn't pull the trigger. It resulted in the sack. So it's like, you can add the context, but I feel like for Trey Lance's preseason, the context really doesn't matter because a lot of the stuff he was doing was literally on him.
And you know, there's a double standard that exists
If you bring up Zach Wilson,
there's a ton of excuses that is being made for Trey Lance right now. I'm not even going to bring up Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson won't be brought up on this show, not even one time, outside of what I just named him named right now. Listen, Trey Lance in preseason wasn't good. The stats, the box score stats will fool you. He had a touchdown. One of those touchdowns was supposed to be an interception, but Duke Shelley dropped it. I mean, Trey Lance threw it right to him. And then that 2-minute drive that people saw some flashes of good stuff from Lance, he threw a potential interception that wasn't caught. That, I mean, it was right in the corner. It was right in the corner's hands. So Trey Lance,
even his TD was,
yeah, the touchdown wasn't even real touchdown to me. Trey Lance was holding on to the ball for too long, like you mentioned. He was taking sacks. He was making poor reads. And there were plays that the Niners dialed up that were open that Trey Lance wasn't pulling the trigger on. Now, can you say, well, listen, those mistakes are fixable? Yeah, they are fixable. I don't think it's the end of the world, but you have to see improvement. And I think at this point in time, the Niners have seen Trey Lance his entire rookie season in training camp and practice. They seen him in his second year in training camp. It was unfortunate he got injured, but when you could say, you know, Trey Lance was robbed of an opportunity, but I could also say, was he really? Because if he was truly winning the quarterback battle heads and shoulders, he was head and shoulders above Darnold and Brock Purdy, which, given what they traded and where they selected him at the 3rd overall pick, he should be, then I don't think Shanahan would have a problem starting Lance. The reason he has a problem starting Lance is because Lance is not completing these simple things within the offense that Shanahan expects. It's not even a hard play. I mean, he expects you to make those plays. There are quarterbacks drafted into situations where they have horrible head coaches, a bad offensive line, bad receivers, bad running game, and they're forced to carry an offense while also adjusting to the NFL game. I think those players have had less of an opportunity than Trey Lance. And this excuse that gets used for Trey Lance, like reps, Jordan Love is the perfect example that I want to compare Lance to, because Jordan Love, last time he played a full season of football was 2019. 2020, 2021, and 2022, he did not play. He did not have those reps that we're saying Trey Lance didn't have. Yes, a season wasn't taken away due to injury, but Jordan Love didn't have those reps. But every step and direction you've seen Jordan Love play, when it was his first start against Casey and he didn't play so well because Chris Jones came back, and that's when the defense truly turned around. They called him a bust off that one game. You know, if Jordan Love makes a mistake, if he doesn't play well in preseason, we're saying Jordan Love is not good. We're not saying he needs reps. We're saying he's just not good. So, but for some reason with Trey Lance, if he's bad, if he's playing bad, it's because of the reps. Nobody ever comes to the conclusion that maybe he's just not a good quarterback.
I see what you're doing here. And for one, you're right. Jordan Love has gotten better over his couple of years in the NFL. That being said, Trey Lance, in 3 years of college football, threw a total of 318 passes. Jordan Love started 3 years of college and tripled that. I mean, his junior year, he plays one game because of the pandemic. His freshman year, he's sitting. I don't really blame Lance for that. Like, for context, Jordan Love had nearly triple the amount of attempts as Trey Lance did in school, so it is a reps thing. Like, that is insane to think about. He played one year of football as a starting quarterback.
If you got it, you got it. Listen, if you got it, you got it.
Anthony Richardson started 1 year as a quarterback in college, transitioning to a quarterback, and he's starting week 1. The Colts have seen enough to say, you know what, you're starting week 1.
I think the injury thing is something we need to like key in on, because a lot of times when you get a quarterback, you draft a quarterback, you get his first year to kind of evaluate. Year 2, you want to see the improvements. And the year 3 is like, same thing for Justin Fields. You know, first year, whatever. Second year, you saw the modest improvements. Now, year 3 is like, okay, this is the make or break year. Let's see what you have. The problem with Lance is his rookie year, you saw a little bit. Year 2, he got hurt, so he didn't have the modest improvement year. Now, year 3, you're stuck because you had another quarterback who kind of made the simple reads, the simple plays, and they were winning. The locker room was behind them. Shanahan loves them. And now you're sitting here like, well, damn, this is my year 3. I'm on a playoff team, a team that can potentially win the Super Bowl, and they don't have time to really give me reps to really make mistakes or make errors. So now you're stuck in a reality. Now it's not a poor situation for a quarterback, but you're stuck in a poor situation for you because you need the reps. You need time. You need the ability to make mistakes. Same thing for like rookies in the NBA. Like, for example, Kuminga, Moody, the young boys in Golden State, they never had the opportunity to get those reps because Steve Kerr pulls me. He doesn't have time for failures. He doesn't have time for making the wrong reads and all that stuff because they're in a playoff championship winning mode. Same thing with Trey Lance. So it's like, is this the situation for him at this point? Probably not. Will he ever get to show it for the Niners? Not likely unless Brock Purdy's dog shit. But then Kyle Shanahan's going to be sitting there like, if Purdy's not good, how confident are we that we can just put Lance in and he automatically gets his wins in the middle of the season in a conference where you have the heavy Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys, who are teams that can legitimately beat you?
Seahawks too.
They're
coming.
Not to mention this. You mentioned a great point. The NFL is not a place to just get reps as a starter. If you get drafted to a bad team, then it makes sense. But you want to know what's the counterpoint to that? If we're saying right now Trey Lance is still raw after being in the NFL for 3 years, and, you know, there are other ways to get better, studying the playbook, learning the offense, being great in practice. There are other ways to showcase yourself, and he hasn't showcased himself yet. And the coaches, I mean, how they speak about him showcases that he really hasn't been impressing them all that much. But with that being said, he's not going to get the reps now because they're in win now mode. What about other quarterbacks that come out raw out of college and they get put in as a starter week 1 as a rookie? And you can say they need reps, but as a rookie, they're bad. And in their second season, they're bad. The truth is that no matter the age, no matter the year a quarterback gets drafted to a team to, whatever reps you have, if you are bad in those reps, the team moves off from you. Because in the NFL, like Riv said, you either have it or you don't. Some quarterbacks haven't had the luxury of developing like Trey Lance has had. And in practice, he's not impressing. And that is the major problem for me.
Shit, even Trevor Lawrence had a bad rookie year. Got a different coach. When the year 2 was amazing. Like,
It was wasted.
you either got it or you don't. And Trey Lance, I'll be honest, like, if he really had it, Kyle Shanahan would be like, I don't give a fuck that Brock Purdy went undefeated. If he really had it, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, he in training camp, maybe he really just doesn't have it. That's okay. Like, maybe he can go to Atlanta and Arthur Smith could work with him. Maybe he can go to Minnesota and Kirk Cousins can move off. Maybe he can go to Tampa Bay, even though Tampa Bay probably is worse. But maybe he needs those opportunities. But in San Francisco, you know, they trust in the last pick in the draft more than you. The locker room trusts in the last pick in the draft more than you. Why? Because they've seen on the field that he can make the simple reads.
But no matter where Trey Lance goes, and I think this is what people are missing, if he moves on, if he gets traded from the 49ers, no matter what team he goes to, the Vikings, the Falcons, etc., he's going to have about a 6 to 7 game lease to show what he can do. Yep. I mean, the Vikings aren't going to trade for Trey Lance and stash him for 3 years and then play him. They're going to see, can this guy play or can he not? And in training camp and in the first couple of weeks in the season, if he's not playing well, he's not playing well. I mean, how long is it going to take for people to look at Jordan Love starts in Green Bay and realize if he's good or if he's not good? It's going to be 5 to 6 weeks. If Jordan Love is not flat out impressive in 5 to 6 weeks, Green Bay will already be looking for the next quarterback.
And Ice Cube said it on our, when we had the interview, he said in the Big 3 league, you cannot hide. And that goes right to the NFL. You cannot hide in the NFL. You either got it or you can't. You can stash a guy like Jordan Love for some change because you have an elite quarterback in front of him. But if Trey Lance gets traded, you can't hide. Justin Fields, you saw when he started his first 6-7 games, you saw what he could potentially be, how much chance you were going to take. Like, all right, this guy's electric. We're going to take the swing. Trey Lance, he might not have 6-7 weeks. Same thing for Jordan Love. They might say in 4 or 5 weeks, what is he going to be? Because, he was sitting for so long. He was behind Aaron Rodgers. Trey Lance might get the same treatment. You got 4 or 5 weeks to show me what you can do. And that might be at the end of it all.
I do think you need more reps than that, but the point you guys make is true. You can't be dog shit in your third season.
No.
You can. And Jordan Love, he was getting called the bust because he was sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know why all of a sudden when it comes to Trey Lance, this is some unfair standard because he can't beat out Brock Purdy, who's been throwing 2 interceptions every training camp practice so far. I mean, I'm just wondering where's the same energy? Jordan Love was called a bust for years, and Trey Lance is it's just unfortunate.
And John,
that's the only thing I'll push back on.
And what you're forgetting is like Trey Lance. You need reps, but Trey Lance is sitting out there with Debo and Brandon Ayuk on the left and the right side, George Kittle and CMC. That's probably the best offense you're going to get as a young player with Kyle Shanahan.
But this is also his first time working with Kittle and CMC.
How hard can it be?
No, the point goes, he didn't get to play with those 2 guys last year.
Yeah,
Purdy did.
And he playing in training camp, but it's not looking too good. I mean, nobody's doing – granted, I'm going to give him a little bit of a pushback because it's the Niners defense they're playing up against the training camp, which is an elite defense. I understand. But at the same time, none of them, Brock, Darnold, or Lance, has looked relatively good against the Niners defense all camp. So it's like Lance hasn't really stepped up and been the shining moment. So that's why Brock Purdy's going to start because he has the regular season, which matters more than training.
If Trey Lance was really making wild throws and impressing Shanahan,
we'd hear it.
We would hear about it. But it's just been such a close battle that it's such a close battle. Shanahan's just going to roll out with Purdy because it's a close battle.
Lance is a top 5 pick in a close battle with Darnold and the last pick in the draft.
Facts. Before this becomes a Trey Lance episode, who is the player you're shorting?
Stock down.
Jeez, yeah, stock down. We got so into the conversation.
Second episode.
Yeah. I love it though. Great conversation. Russell Wilson stinks, bro. I'm gonna be honest. I don't. Russell Wilson's the guy I'm gonna short. I wasn't high on the Broncos coming in last season. I was the only one who didn't have Denver making the playoffs. I just didn't think their offense was good. I didn't think Russell Wilson was going to be the same in Seattle, but I didn't think it would be that bad, and then he came in, his deficiencies got wider. The offense in Denver became more glaring. There was a lot more weaknesses than we usually thought. Like, I thought they'd be a 7-8 win team. They weren't that good from the jump. But now coming into this year, you saw the preseason game, and Russell seems like the same guy to me. And the offensive line, I don't think improved at a major rate. They still have Judy and Sutton, which I don't think is movable. Tim Patrick is going to be out for the year, so that hurt. They're going to rely on KJ Hamler, who maybe we can see some things.
Gone, right? They have to let go of KJ.
Oh my God, if he's gone too, that's rough. Javonte Williams, he's good. He's a good running back. I'm not going to say he's not, but I just think this offense in the AFC, I don't think it's going to be good enough to produce. I don't think Russell Wilson is going to be good enough to produce. I think when we look at the AFC, we look at the teams that we could potentially make the playoffs. They all have guys that can be at elite at any moment for stretches in the season. Herbert, Allen. We're still hoping Deshaun can do it. Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, of course. Even Trevor Lawrence. I don't think Russell Wilson, which he's going to have to do, can stretch out 4 to 5 games in a year, maybe even more, to be elite. Because I think even though Sean Payton, as great as he is, I think Russell Wilson is declining, and the deficiencies are just too glaring to really, bat an eye. And I don't think they have the offensive weapons to really backpack.
No, you just got to wonder. I'm saying Drew seats. I'm not going to be negative here, too negative. You do have to wonder what the Broncos' actual strength is offensively. Running the football with Ben Parris coming in. They add in the tight end, Chris Manhertz, as well for this running game. But Javante's coming off the worst knee injury possible. Samaje Perine a good number 2 back, but can he step in as the number 1? We'll see. So for me, the 2 guys that I am stocking down on, shorting, are the Jets' backup running backs, Michael Carter and Donovan Knight. Not just because they just signed Dalvin Cook to a 1-year deal, but because this rookie running back out of Pitt, Israel Abadakanda, is going to surprise a lot of NFL fans. He's good in between the tackles, got decent explosiveness. I think as a third back, he can take Michael Carter's role. And it was just 2 years ago, he was RB1 in New York. Now he's becoming RB4. And the same for Knight, who actually had some pretty good weeks at the end of last year when Bruce was down.
The Vikings. That's the first team we're going to preview in the NFC North.
Right.
Coming off a 13-4 season. Now, the topic is, are they somewhat getting underrated? Because after winning 13 games, you would imagine that now, this team should be the favorite in the division. But I have concerns about the Vikings. I love the Vikings. I love Kirk Cousins. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he's been underrated for a very, very long time. But when you look at the Vikings season in 2022, you have to be honest about what it was and what it likely will be this season. 11 of their wins came in one-score games. Since 2002, only one other team has done that, the 2019 Seattle Seahawks with Russell Wilson. They won 9 times last season despite trailing at halftime. They are responsible for the biggest comeback in NFL history against the Colts, down 33-0. And they trailed by a combined 70 points entering the fourth quarter in all of their games. So we're talking about a Vikings team that went 11-0 in one-score games. That type of variance usually regresses year to year. Teams are usually about 500 in those one-score games, and the Vikings were undefeated. And unfortunately, the one-score game they lost was in the playoffs to the Giants. But to me, last season kind of felt a little lucky. You know, Kirk Cousins had his worst year as a Vikings quarterback last year, despite all the fourth quarter comebacks. From an efficiency standpoint, Kirk Cousins' numbers were down. The defense was one of the worst units in the NFL. They couldn't run the ball effectively. This is a team that really didn't do a lot of things well, yet they had an elite record. And amongst all the 500 teams, they had the worst point differential. And in 3 of their 4 losses last year, to the Eagles, Cowboys, Lions, and Packers, they had the worst point differential in their losses. I think, you know, they got blown out by the Eagles, Cowboys, and the Packers. The Vikings, to me, last year kind of felt a little lucky with how many one-score games they won. It was a magical season, the best win-loss record in Kirk Cousins' time in Minnesota. But to me, I have them at 8-9 simply because I think, you know, they were 11-0 last year in one-score games. If they're 6-5 this year, one-score games, that drops them down to 8-9. So I don't think that variance is sustainable year to year.
But is Kirk Cousins clutch?
Crying.
I think Kirk Cousins
It's jealous, baby.
I think Kirk Cousins is a quarterback that is good enough to win you a Super Bowl. I do. Under the right team construction,
scenario.
like the 49ers, but a lot of quarterbacks can win with the 49ers. I think Kirk Cousins is a really good quarterback. I think he's gotten the short end of the stick with his primetime numbers and stuff. I love Kirk. I do. But this team just, even with Brian Flores coming in as DC, I think the defense will be better marginally. It's not going to be from bottom 20. It's not going to be one of the worst defense in the league to now the 11th ranked defense. I think this defense is going to still be around where they were. You lost Dalvin Cook. Alexander Madison, it was less efficient than Cook last year in his carries. So for me, I just really think the Vikings are, you know, they're just going to come back down to earth this year.
Who's Kirk Cousins at his best or Jared Goff for the Rams at their best?
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins. So you think Kirk Cousins would have beat the Patriots that year?
I don't know if he beats them, but I think Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback.
Well, it's not hard to score more points than what that shit was.
Well, that defense was elite.
Yeah, that was a dog shit game. Yeah, it was really bad.
Worst Super Bowl I've watched.
Oh yeah, I stopped watching.
Not the worst. I've seen some pretty balanced.
The Seahawks and Broncos weren't good either. You guys remember the Lonzo Ball at Chicago Bulls? That reminds me a lot of last year's Minnesota Vikings team. You know, a bit of an overachievement. You know, exciting, fun to watch. You know, very cool, but not that team. That team that just gets into the playoffs and it's like they're not winning. You just had that feeling. You was like, nah, they're not gonna do much, but they're exciting. They're fun to watch. You know, 13-3 is an overachievement. They felt like to us at this table, at least. Like, we had them beating the Giants, of course, because we didn't think the Giants were this world beater. But the Vikings felt like the most disrespected 13-3 team probably that we've seen in a while. You know, they didn't get much respect last year. People felt like they weren't a contender. You know, they were one of the bottom dwellers in the playoffs. People thought the Seahawks could beat them. The Giants had a comfortable margin to beat them. You know, even teams like the Jaguars on the other side. So they weren't really – they probably – a lot of people's eyes was the worst team in the playoffs last year, outside of a few teams. So this year they come in, you know, they let a lot of go. I like their secondary. It's young. Byron Murphy, they drafted Jay Ward, Mekhi Blackman. They got a lot of youth in the secondary, which is what they needed. Patrick Peterson is gone. You know, so you needed some youth on that end because a lot of their guys like Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, you know, they're getting up there in age.
Kendricks is gone now.
Yeah, Daniel Hunter. Yeah, they're getting up there in age. So you need some youth to this group, and their offense is getting young. You know, they let go of Dalvin Cook. They have Justin Jefferson. They hope to keep him. Jordan Addison, you know, he had a big year at USC. His route running is exceptional. So that's another guy they want to keep. TJ Hawkinson is also still pretty young. He also had an elite back end of the year with Minnesota. You know, he was great for them. And I think this offense, like you mentioned, 8-9 seems like the blueprint. I think this offense will keep them in games. 11-0 in one-score games is nuts. You know, I think they're going to lose a couple of those. The defense failed them a lot, but I think offensively they'll be able to keep afloat. You know, I think when you have Jettas, Addison coming in, you have TJ Hawkinson, Kirk Cousins is still a good-ass quarterback. I think this offense will be able to score points. You know, I think defensively, you know, you need that youth, that drive, that athleticism coming in. So I think that secondary is going to be really good this year. And I think they'll be better than what they were last year, which was damn near horrible. So how worse can you get? But I think this Vikings team is definitely going to be solid. You know, I don't think we expect too much out of them. Like, if they win the division, I don't think we'd be too surprised. But I think 10, 11 wins is a very far bar. Maybe not 10 wins, but 11 to 12. And I think I could definitely see this team being a solid team that can definitely give a lot of teams some fits throughout the regular season.
To be honest, I think the Vikings have become underrated. We saw with my Steelers back 2 years ago. They went 11-0, and everybody knew they were not contenders. We laughed at them, right? And even I knew the team couldn't run the football. The next year, they still made the playoffs. And I look at this Vikings team this year, and everybody's willing to say the Lions division, the Bears are coming. I look at their offseason, like, they got younger in the secondary. Most importantly, they replaced one of the worst defensive coordinators in the league with Brian Flores, one of the most well-respected. He did a good job in Pittsburgh through a very turbulent first year with them. But then offensively, one of their biggest needs last year was that number 2 wide receiver, along with TJ and Jettas. And I feel like Jordan Addison's perfectly suited for that role. I'm saying Dehls' chair, he's high on him. I am too. He's not necessarily number 1 receiver who could win against press, but with all the attention Jettas is going to accumulate, that's going to open up the game a ton for him. And you make a good point. You lose a guy like Dalvin Cook, Dalvin Tomlinson, Zadarius Smith, and Patrick Peterson, but getting younger in the secondary, and in a Marcus Davenport on the front 7, and then Byron Murphy, that was the injection of youth this team needed to get more versatile defensively. And I think I may have told you guys, I had them finishing first in this division. Then you asked, do you have the Lions or the Vikings finishing first? I may have said yes, the Lions. I've got the Vikings still winning this, and I still think that they're going to win this pretty comfortably. Or at least, I wouldn't say comfortably, but they're going to be the best team in this division, and I think they're the most stable one.
How many games?
I got them winning 10 games. But you're the most confident and comfortable with their floor as a team.
The additions they made, Joe Juan Williams from the Patriots, Dean Lowry, Jordan Addison, Marcus Davenport, Byron Murphy Jr., Josh Oliver, who's a good inline blocker. They made some okay additions. The cuts, Eric Kendricks, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, Zadarius Smith, Patrick Peterson. They just cut Cam Dancer, who was a first-round pick for them not too long ago. Dalvin Tomlinson, Duke Shelley, who was a pleasant surprise. Now, losing a ton of players on one of the worst-ranked defenses isn't that big of a deal. The only part of the Vikings defense that was actually pretty good was the run defense, but that had a lot to do with Harrison Phillips, who's still on the team right now. The secondary is still not good. Right now in training camp, they're getting a lot of calls for defensive pass interferences.
They're young.
Byron Murphy Jr. is good. I think he's a solid corner. He was with the Cardinals, but you're starting a rookie in Evans. Andrew Booth Jr. last year was unhealthy. Joe Juan Williams is all right. And Harrison Smith is getting older. Cameron Bynum is likely going to start. Louis Cine, who was their first-round pick last year, was injured last year. I just am not very high on this defense. I think Brian Flores will do what he can with it, but it's the second worst defense in the division. I think the Lions defense and what they were the second half of the season and what the Packers have on talent on paper will be better. And then really the calling card for the Vikings is going to be the passing game, which is going to be great with Justin Jefferson. But for me, this team was an overachiever last year. This season, they have the 9th toughest schedule. The defense is rebuilding. They face teams like the Eagles, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Bengals, the Saints, the Broncos. Those are 50-50 games. The Broncos I'm not high on, but I think the Vikings are in that tier with the Saints in the NFC. And any team within that tier is going to be a crapshoot with who wins.
I'm surprised. I feel like you're being overly critical. First off, Cam Dantzler's 89th overall pick, but they just lost last year.
The second rounder.
Third rounder. They had 2 top 45 picks.
Third rounder.
2 top 45
He was
picks
starting last year.
in the secondary that did not play last year in Zion and Booth. But the thing with that defense was it wasn't just the second worst in the division. That was arguably the worst in football. And especially at the end of the season versus the Giants, we saw with that Fangio-style defense, the problem with it was they weren't accounting for the quarterback being able to run the football. They couldn't stop a nosebleed in the run game oftentimes, at least with the quarterback rushing. But they're giving up a lot of those short to intermediate plays. This year with the defense, it doesn't have to be top 15, top 10. It just can't be the 31st worst or the 31st best in the NFL, second to worst.
They're still going to be in a ton of
20
close
sets.
games.
It's young, though. I see what he's saying.
If it takes a step forward from 31st to 21st, that's a huge step in the right direction, and that may be all they simply need to still win this division.
Well, this is the thing.
I think that's what they're going
with
to.
The Vikings, I know when you look at the team, 13 wins. Wow, this team won 13 games. 11-0 in one-score games. That is going to regress. There's really no other way for me to put it. And it's not just the defense that I'm concerned about. I like Brian Flores a lot, but if you look at the Dolphins' defenses with Brian Flores, points-wise, they didn't allow much because they were great situationally. But in terms of yardage given up, the Dolphins were not a great defense in terms of stopping teams from gaining yardage on them.
That's good, though, I feel like.
Kirk Cousins last year, I said that last year he didn't have a great year to his standards. Against the man last year, against the blitz, he was ranked 33rd amongst every quarterback, 43rd success rate, 39th in yards per attempt. Against man with no blitz, so I just read you numbers when he was blitzed. Against no blitz, so we're talking about a clean pocket, he was 13th in EPA, 15th success rate, and 7.8 in yards per attempt, which is 15, which is good. But right now, the key to really just making Cousins timid is blitzing him a ton, which was the blueprint last year against him. And Cousins' efficiency went down across the board last year. And to me, I look at him, he's in the last year of his deal. He's only getting older. I still think Cousins is capable, but to continue being a top 10-ish level production quarterback, I think he's starting to fall off that a little bit.
He was in a new offense too, though. And I feel like we tend to be critical of Kirk because of the memes. He's not a good primetime quarterback. But when looking at the position, he's right there with the Dak Prescott. And for many people, I believe in the Cowboys, that's not holding them back. The 11th and 12th best quarterbacks in the league. And the reality, too, was he didn't have that number 2 wide receiver he could rely on with Thielen and KJ Osborne. If he now has that, another safety blanket he can comfortably go to. He's a better feel and familiarity for the offense. It's safe to assume he can build off of last year. And to be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed. You've been so negative on Kirk.
I'm still relying heavily on
I'm negative on Kirk?
Sounds like it, yeah.
I don't think so.
I don't think I'm negative on Kirk.
I think he's more negative on the youth, and if they're gonna come in and help right away.
Kirk Cousins.
I'm not out on Kirk Cousins. I think he's a good quarterback. I think the offense will keep them in games. The defense is not going to be good. I don't know how else to tell you. And they're facing the second hardest schedule of offenses next year with a rebuilding defense. Is that not alarming?
A not good defense would be an upgrade from an abysmal defense last year.
So Brian Flores in his second year in Miami, because I'm discounting the first year, it was a complete rebuild. The defense ranked 20th in yards allowed, 23rd in passing yards, and 16th in rushing yards. But they were ranked 6th, in points allowed per game. In 2021, the defense got worse to allowing 16. They were 16th in points allowed. Yards, they were 15th, so they upgraded. Passing yards, they were 16th. And rushing yards, they were 14th. And that Dolphins defense had some talent. Brian Flores is a great DC when he has a lot of talent. He's not a miracle worker. This defense is not going to turn into one of the worst into an average unit. It's still going to be really bad. Really bad.
We expect it to be one of the 10 worst. That being said, Ed Donatel, what he did, there was no alternative. There was no adjustments. It was just we're getting shit on every single week.
So now, I have the Vikings schedule here.
There we go.
Because it's a tough schedule. It really is a tough schedule. And John, I don't know if we want to do it as a group thing, because I think if we give it to John, John is going to be like, you know what? I think they beat the Chiefs.
Let's do it
that week.
Let John do it. Let John cook.
Let's do it as a group. So, predicting the Minnesota Vikings record in 2023. Will they regress from a 13-win season? First week versus the Buccaneers. And when I say versus, it's a home game. At is away, of course. So, versus the Bucks.
Vikes.
Comfortable with W.
Week 2 at Eagles.
L. Oh, we play them again. Let's go.
Yeah, nah, I got Philadelphia big time.
Versus the Chargers.
That's a toss-up.
These are two very similar teams when it comes to the injuries. Los Angeles should be healthy week 3. I think they win.
I'll go Vikes.
Vikes?
Yeah.
So, you have the Chargers.
I have the Vikings losing, so they're 1-2 to start.
So, are we going with John's?
Yeah, we go with John.
So, 1-2 to start. At the Panthers.
That's a tough one. Not at home.
Carolina's tough.
Not that Carolina has the
I think
toughest play.
Minnesota could win this one. But it's up to you, buddy. You're thinking hard.
Yeah, I don't think the Panthers really have the weapons to punish this Vikings defense. Minnesota wins.
Versus the Chiefs.
It's obvious.
Kansas City wins this one. I just don't think Kirk.
2 and 3, by the way.
Yeah.
At the Bears.
Got them winning early.
At
That Bears
Chicago?
defense is nothing to be scared of. I think they can run the football rather well.
At Chicago.
Yeah, at Chicago.
3 and
Versus the 49ers.
3 and 4, buddy. Just don't think about it.
49ers are getting this W.
At the Packers.
So they're 4-4 right now, right?
No, they're 3 and 4.
3-4.
This would be the 4.
Oh, gotcha. At Green Bay. I'm going to have them beating them.
Okay.
4 and 4.
At the Falcons.
It's a good game. Arthur Smith, Kevin O'Connell.
On the road, by the way.
Okay.
Minnesota's on the road.
This Falcons defense, I'm not scared of.
You're not
Defense is
scared.
better than the Vikings.
Yeah, it is.
It's comfortably.
Comfortably, maybe.
Definitely more talent on it.
If AJ Tortorelli gets back to that 2021 level.
Well, he has to guard Jettas
sure.
that day, so.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm going to go with the Vikings getting this W on the road.
4 and 4.
Versus the Saints.
Minnesota.
5 and 4.
At the Broncos.
Minnesota.
6 and 4.
Versus the Bears.
Oh, you
I think they
sweep.
lose.
Oh, they lose. Okay. They lose
They'll
the
split
road.
this schedule with the Bears.
This was a home game for Minnesota.
It'd be like that sometimes.
6 and 5.
At the Raiders.
That's an easy W.
7 and 5. Yeah, don't say easy.
If Garoppolo's hurt by then, that team's season is in the dumpster. So,
At the Bengals.
that's a tough game
What do you mean? For who?
for the Vikings.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
This is a tough game.
7 and 6, right? That's what we're doing? Oh, you're thinking about it. This guy is insane.
Okay, I'll go Minnesota, but I think this could be a close
Oh,
game.
what
You're
the
going
fuck?
Minnesota versus the Bengals?
There
no,
it is.
no, sorry. I didn't miss. Nope, fuck it. I'm
Yeah.
going with the Vikings winning this shit.
Now,
Okay.
I'm going to be honest. We're rescinding that. We're rescinding. No.
I meant to say Bengals. But
No,
then-
if you want to go Minnesota, go Minnesota.
No, I was
Be
going to
different.
go Bengals.
Oh,
I just
Okay.
misspoke.
So what are we at now?
7 and 6.
7 and 6?
Okay.
Okay. Versus the Lions.
First game playing each other?
Last year, the Lions swept the Vikings. By the way.
That's not happening this year.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're okay.
Vikings will win.
8 and 6.
Versus the Packers.
Are you going to sweep the Packers too?
Now they'll split.
Okay, so 8 and 7.
In a Week 18 game at the Lions.
They're going to get a second W. That would make them 9-7, though. So we're
We're missing
game short. I think I have them at 4-4 personally, and so we were missing a W in there.
So then 10 and 7.
That's my prediction.
10 and 7. Yeah, that's around. That's
I think
respectable.
And a couple of them I laughed at.
I feel they're a soft 10-7, but they're a team that's floor to me is 8 wins if everything went poorly.
So the teams that you had them beating were the Buccaneers,
Yes.
the Panthers on the road,
Yep.
the Bears on the road,
Mhm.
the Packers on the road,
Mhm.
the Falcons on the road.
Raiders.
You had them beating the Raiders. You had them beating the
Lions.
Broncos on the road. So they're winning
A lot
the
of road
Broncos
games.
and Raiders on the road. So you got this team being a road team. They're going to get a lot of their wins on the road.
More of a
That's
home team.
7 wins on the road. Did you have them beating the Saints at home?
I did.
So that's 8 wins. And then you had them beating the Lions twice.
Yeah. You know what?
So that's 10 and 7. And you had them winning almost every
They
road.
we
were
make-
5 and 3 in a row last year.
When we make these season predictions, we so often make about who's just a better team. But for me, it's one, how you match up against each other, and then 2, kind of feeling out the upsets. Because upsets happen every year. And I think on that schedule, the one game that I could see being upset is versus Cincinnati, because neither of the two teams can really run the football rather well. Cincinnati's defense is changing with some of the safeties losing. I feel like Kirkio and these guys in the Vikings offense, they can go up in Cincinnati, and they can go toe-to-toe with this Bengals offense from a passing perspective. It would be like a 30-27 game, high-powered, down to the wire. In the regular season, I think that's a toss-up. The Bengals are a clearly better team, but I think personally Minnesota would match up rather well with them.
You lost me at the matchup. The reason why you lost me is because the Bengals will score on the Vikings with relative ease. It won't even be a challenge for them to score. It really won't. It would be a giant to an ant. That's how different the offense to the defense discrepancy is.
Those young boys going to get tested that day.
The Bengals, Luanarumo, I am sure, has more up his sleeve from a defensive designer standpoint to stop the Vikings for at least 2 to 3 drives in that game.
But if it's 3 months into the season, a lot of these younger corners, like a Andrew Booth,
it's Jamar Chase, bro, and T. Higgins.
But if they can develop in time
to play Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
That shit's crazy.
Yeah, you sounded nuts when you said that shit.
And you talk. This is where you lost me with the matchup thing, because if we're talking about matchups, you have them sweeping the Lions. The Lions swept the Vikings last year
and got better.
And the Vikings cannot stop them offensively. The Lions have an elite offense. So if we're talking about matchups, who wins in the trenches between the Lions and the Vikings? It's the Lions. Their offensive line and defensive line is better. Even though their corners are nothing special, the Lions' corners are better. The Lions, while Jefferson is not better than the Lions, and while Amon-Ra's not better than Justin Jefferson, I think the Vikings have better receivers. The Lions' offense as a whole is just better, led by Ben Johnson. So if we're talking about matchups, I think the Lions match up better with the Vikings.
No, you got me there. That being said, this Vikings offense can be elite too, with a good offensive line, dynamic passing game. Like, let's not act like Lions phenomenal game, phenomenal play calling by Ben Johnson, but the Vikings can't keep up. You know what? If I were to have to make a change, it would be they split with the Lions. That being said, I think they would then take 2 games from the Packers. So still got 10 games.
So either or, it's 10 games. Now listen, I
think it's
respect
crazy.
it.
I'm here with you, buddy. Do your thing.
You're replacing me in this Vikings agenda, and people are gonna comment, Joel, you're giving up on the Vikings. Listen, just because I like the Vikings, I can like the team, doesn't mean I got to be unrealistic about it. Doesn't mean that every year I got to pick them to win a division. I think every year to year things change, and we'll see if I'm proven right or wrong. If I'm proven wrong, I'll apologize to Skull Nation, and I'll shake your hand, and I'll tell you guys I apologize for ever doubting. But we'll see in the season, because the Vikings, I do think there are some red flags that I just can't get behind right now. I want to look at a couple things when it comes to the Vikings before we move on. And one of those things is Kirk Cousins, because I have mentioned earlier that I think Kirk Cousins is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the NFL, because I'm looking at his resume, and Kirk Cousins has 4 seasons with a 100-plus passer rating. He's been a 4-time Pro Bowler. I don't think it's crazy to say that if Kirk Cousins were a Super Bowl champion right now, he's a Hall of Famer. Like, I think he's a locked-in Hall of Famer. With his stats and his resume, I think we'd view him in that lens, because that's all it takes. Matthew Stafford became a Hall of Famer off of 1 Super Bowl run.
Matthew Stafford's numbers are fucking nuts, though.
Kirk Cousins' numbers and Matthew Stafford numbers are right there with each other.
Look, the perception of a quarterback changes a lot when you go from 1 to 4 postseason wins. Unless you're Joe Flacco, then that doesn't matter, I guess.
So we're going to do a blind reaction. Blind reaction, quarterbacks over the last 5 seasons. Kirk Cousins has played 80 games, is 46-33-1, has completed 67.8% of his passes, thrown 153 touchdowns to 50 interceptions, 262 yards per game with a 100.9 passer rating. So those are Kirk Cousins stats. We're going to compare them against other quarterbacks in the league and see if you're taking Kirk Cousins or this quarterback, you're not going to know the name. So
hold
first,
on. Sorry, Matthew Stafford has 2 T's in his name.
2 what?
2 T's.
Yeah, he does. You thought it was just 1?
Yeah, that's so funny. Holy shit.
So first quarterback we're comparing Kirk Cousins to over the last 5 seasons has played 82 games, a record of 55-27, 65.5% completion percentage, 161 touchdowns to 52 interceptions, 281 yards per game, and a 96.1 passer rating. You taking Kirk or this quarterback?
You're trying to think of the guy so you won't pick the
Totally.
right
Scan through all the mediocre quarterbacks. Because you got to kind of have a feel for who it is.
I'll take the other guy, not Kirk.
I will take the unknown player.
The unknown player is Tom Brady.
Thank God.
In the last 5 seasons.
Oh, this is the last 5 seasons. That makes more sense to me. Yeah.
So next quarterback has played 60 games in the last 5 seasons, has gone 31-28, completed 67% of his passes, 111 touchdowns to 41 interceptions, has passed for 261 yards per game, and a passer rating of 102.3.
This feels like Rodgers.
Really?
31-28 the last 4 years.
111
touchdowns,
though?
No, fuck that, because Rodgers had 3 straight years. Of
fuck no, not even no shot.
No, I was thinking of the production, like the low interception to extremely high turnovers. 200. He said 260.
Once he said 111 touchdowns, I'm thinking young guy immediately.
260 yards. That's
this
well
might be
below
Lamar.
Rodgers' average. No, he wins way too many games. This guy's barely about 500.
I'll go Kirk this one. Just fuck around, beat
This
Derek Carr.
guy's. No, this is a random quarterback. I'm going Kirk here.
This is Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun, no.
Makes sense.
Pain, Deshaun. That didn't sound too good, I'll be honest.
Next quarterback we're going to bring up has played 66 games in the last 5 seasons, 29-36-1 record, 117 touchdowns to 51 interceptions, 263 yards per game, and a 96.6 passer rating.
That record sounds awful.
Can you repeat that record?
29-36-1.
No.
This is Justin Herbert?
I was looking. Technically, I was looking at the Packers football reference, how many games will have Rodgers, but no.
It's not Justin Herbert because he hasn't played 5 seasons yet.
29-36-1 just sounds ugly as shit. Give me Kirk, man.
I'll take Kirk as well.
Give me Kirk, yeah.
This quarterback is Matthew Stafford.
29-36. So he did just get to the Rams. Yeah, that sucks for him.
And his second year with the Rams wasn't good, you know.
Disaster.
Next quarterback has played 65 games in the last 5 seasons, record of 39-26, has completed 67% of his passes, 121 touchdowns to 48 interceptions, 276 yards per game, and a passer rating of 98.8.
I know who this is. Give me him.
Dak.
Give me him. Yeah, give me him.
This is Dak Prescott. This is Dak
I had a feeling.
Prescott
I had
right
a feeling.
here.
Once I heard the overwhelming record, I'm like, this is Dak.
I was waiting for Dak. I feel like that was one.
He's at 39-26. Yeah.
Next quarterback has played 70 games in the last 5 seasons, 45-16 record, 63.7% completion percentage, 101 touchdowns to 38 interceptions, 174 yards per game, 96.7 rating.
I want
176 yards per game?
Passing, yes.
I'm taking him.
This is Lamar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take Lamar.
This is Lamar Jackson.
Once I heard the record, I'm like,
FYI, I would have took Dak 2 over Kirk, but I didn't say that.
Now, this quarterback has played 77 games in the last 5 seasons, has gone 43-34, 65% completion percentage, 147 touchdowns to 42 interceptions, 239 yards per game, and a 101.9 rating.
is this Josh?
No, it's not Josh.
No. Okay.
He's thrown too many yards.
Yeah, that's what I said. 239 just didn't sound right. This one's tough. All right, so
I'm thinking of Goff. Can you repeat the record?
43-34.
passing yards?
No, it's
No, I'm actually
passing yards, 239 passing yards per game.
I think Goff is a reasonable guess.
I would go
Let's do
Kirk
that.
though.
Kirk
I'm go Kirk.
versus Goff? I would go Kirk 2 over Goff. So, yeah, I might say it's Goff and Kirk.
This is not Goff. This is Russell Wilson.
Wow, Russ. I thought it was Goff. Goff was going.
And now the last quarterback has played 80 games in the last 5 seasons, the same as Kirk. 35-45 record, 67% completion percentage, 114 touchdowns to 55 interceptions, 256 yards per game, 95.2 passer rating.
The record just be bad, bro.
This is a current player?
This is Derek Carr.
No, I don't think Carr threw that many TDs.
I'm just trying to pick it. I didn't get Carr right yet.
114 over 5 years is fine.
That's fire.
It's okay.
Still going Kirkio.
I'm going Kirk here. I'm going to guess this is... Who else would it be outside of Carr?
I'll take a swing and say this is Jimmy G? No, he doesn't play enough fucking games.
No, this is a losing record. This guy is 25 and 35. Or
80 games you said they played?
80 games.
Shit.
If it's not Carr, I don't know.
He's
Andy
a
Dalton?
loser.
No,
Nah.
fucking Andy Dalton. Yeah, I don't know.
We're going Derek Carr.
I'm going Kirkio, though.
This is Derek Carr. This
You
is
doubted
Derek
me.
Carr.
No, I just
When I
wanted
first
to
said it, you
ensure.
doubted me.
That was a good guess.
He doubted me, John.
That was a good guess.
You have to look. You have to let the board speak to you.
And there was some players right there that, you know, Kirk's numbers were a little better than like Dak, and you guys went Dak.
Russell Wilson.
You know, Tom Brady, that was a little bit of a
Scared the shit
maybe
out
it
of
could
us.
have been Kirk. It was a close call for sure.
We took Kirk over Russell
Now,
Wilson.
I had to
comfortably.
settle in with the Brady one being first. The good thing I didn't pick Kirk.
No, I knew
So-
Brady. He would have started the trend with Brady. So I'm like, nah, we're going Brady.
So, you know that over the last 4 seasons, the Vikings have had 40-plus picks in the NFL draft. And I think they've only drafted like 6 good NFL players that amounted to starters. In 2022, Louis Seen injured, Andrew Booth injured, not their fault. We know that. Ed Ingram, guard, who struggled last year. Brian Osama, he's a okay player. He's going to be starting next year. Evans, who's going to be the starting corner this year. Ty Chandler, Asezi Otemo, Vidarian Lowe, Jalen Naylor, Nick Muse. In 2021, it was Christian Darrisaw, Kellen Mond, Chaz Surratt, who aren't even on the team no more, Mond and Surratt, Wyatt Davis, Patrick Jones, Keeney Nguanu, Cameron Bynum, Janarius Robinson, Amir Smith-Marset, Zach Davidson, Jalen Twyman. And then in 2020, they had 15 picks in that draft. They drafted Justin Jefferson, Jeff Gladney, Ezra Cleveland, Cam Dantzler, DJ Wonnum, James Lynch, Troy Dye, Harrison Hand, KJ Osborne, Blake Brendel, Josh Metellus, Kenny Wilkes, Nate Stanley, Brian Cole, Kyle Hinton.
Yeah, that's not great. But they also got arguably the best playmaker in the NFL with their first round pick.
Yeah, with Justin Jefferson.
We got lucky as shit because we made a foolish mistake.
Their draft history
Picking
is
Jalen
really bad.
fucking Rieger, bro.
Hey, now they're teammates. I don't know if Rigger's even on the team anymore. Probably not.
He's on the Vikings.
Still is.
Still?
He might still be on the Vikings, yeah.
Not sure.
Brody fumbled.
He's a returner.
To be fair, though, they did have 15 picks in 2020. Only 4 of them were top 100. So it wasn't like they had some good tickets. It was a lot of 6th and 7th rounders. In fact, 7 of those 15 were 6th and 7th rounders.
They're not finding any.
Not everybody.
Hidden
Look,
gems.
not everybody can be the Steelers in the draft, bro.
You guys are.
won-
Wasn't
you ever-
Devin Bush a first round pick?
They won a Super Bowl since
We created
2010.
up to
He's
get.
on a new pit. On
Maybe
a new
we
team.
should. And I sent you all a video. This will change the way you look at the NFL draft. A lot of the time, the teams that trade up usually are the ones that regret their decisions the
You
most.
picked Kenny Pickett.
Your point is, yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
Mid.
Yeah.
they kicked Deshaun Watson's ass last year.
Congrats. Did you
Why
kick
not?
Jalen Hurts' ass?
No, he was dominated.
Did you get to the Super Bowl?
Riff,
Did you make the playoffs? You brought up the Browns. I don't know why.
because he's better than Deshaun Watson.
He's not better than Jacoby Brissett.
Well,
That was a
Jacoby
gr-
was better than Deshaun last year.
Well, yeah, Deshaun didn't play football for a fucking year.
Oh, maybe it's his fault.
And it was
Yeah.
for sure his fault. You know, I'm not gonna say it wasn't. Yeah, you know, you kind of set me up with that one. But I bet you if Kenny Pickett missed for a year, he'd be asked too, for sure, undoubtedly. I know.
You know what though? I just think you're being a little bit critical.
Kenny Pickett's best will never be Deshaun's best in Houston.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So you're cooked.
Yeah, he got you.
We'll have a
there.
better career though.
What the fuck?
You think so?
You think so?
He'll be a Steelers legend.
Kenny Pickett's
don't know
already
about a
26.
Steelers
Deshaun
legend.
has like 4 or 5 years in him. already.
25. Just turned 25.
If he's not a Steelers legend, how can he have a better career?
Could have a lot more respect and faith in the Steelers.
Yo, I
than
see
the
what you're
Browns.
doing.
Look, every year the Browns have a lot of hype, but they haven't won the division since 1989. Last time the Steelers finished out last 1988.
Was
They
last
beat
time
you in
they-
the playoffs though, and y'all won.
And
Didn't
that
they choke
was-
that year? You guys
That was their franchise highlight since moving. Or getting
when have
their
they
team
ever
back
had
in
a
the
talent
90s.
as great as Deshaun Watson at quarterback?
They haven't. Deshaun last
New vibes.
year didn't really look like the same guy.
Dude, he missed a year because he was doing things, odd things.
To be honest, quarterback is a very intangible position. There's a case he's not the same player he was in Houston.
There's also a case he's still really good. He just needed to get the rust off. Remember, you said reps.
Reps are
He
pretty
hasn't
good.
been very good in training camp. To be fair, he's been all right up and down.
Browns defense is elite, bro.
No, I'm talking about like in joint practices today against the Eagles. He wasn't good.
Oh, where's the
It's
Three
make or-
touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Look, this is
Hey,
a make or break
Eagles-
it year for
Eagles
the
training.
Browns.
We're the best team in the league.
If the Browns are going to make a Super Bowl push, it is this season. When Kevin Stefanski having
You're
some
asking
pressure
for a lot.
on
Let's
him.
get to the playoffs first, Figure that out. Win the
Exactly.
division.
Right.
You're
The
asking for too
Steelers, they
much.
lose in the playoffs. That's their disappointing year. The Browns lose.
Hilarious, because you
Second
haven't won a Super
round.
Bowl since 2010.
Yeah. Well, they
What the
actually
fuck
lost
do you-
that year in the Super Bowl. It's
Oh, so you
2008.
didn't even win. So what are you
Yeah.
talking about?
It was 2009 they won
Oh, Jesus Christ.
against this guy,
2008,
the Fitz guy. Yeah,
Talking about some.
Cardinals should have won that year.
We've also been in the Super Bowl 3 times in the last 16 years.
You won one of them.
Okay. You won 2?
How old are you, John?
I'm 20 years old.
So in the last, wait a minute. So let me get this straight. 2008, you were what, 4, 5, 6?
Yeah, I was 4.
So you really don't even have any record. You don't have any real memory of a winning
The first
franchise.
Super Bowl I watched was the San Antonio Holmes game. I watched a little bit. Wasn't really
So
I
what's
was
the first
4.
one you actually watched? Let's be serious here. You didn't watch it.
first one I actually watched.
It wasn't nothing.
Good question.
Because it wasn't one. You didn't. You didn't watch any real Super Bowl. I got him. You didn't watch any real Super Bowl like that you can actually remember. You didn't.
You know, I don't remember too well because the first Super Bowl I really watched was the one where Rashad Mendenhall fumbled. Ben had a bad pick, and we lost to the Packers, and that was one of the worst days of my life. So, and we haven't been to the Super Bowl since.
Oh, okay. Got it. This guy's a clown.
But you love to use the card. Oh, well, what the Browns last time made the playoffs champ? They've been there once the last 20 years.
I didn't even bring up Baker. I could care
They've been
less
up
about it.
one playoff game. One playoff.
I mean, I'm not saying this. I think you guys are a better team than organization.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, better team this year. I'm not sure, but better
Organization, you guys
sure.
fucking clear, of course. But their last moment was against you guys where you guys choked. Lost to Baker Mayfield. I hate that for you. Yeah. And you had a great regular season that year. You guys are pushing forward, and then you fumbled.
That team was a disaster.
And then you lost to Blake Bortles at one point in your life.
Yeah.
Let
Do
me
you
stop
want
you,
to just stab me too and just rip my heart out?
Sorry.
The Chiefs cooked them the year after too. Oh, the Chiefs violated.
Yo, Blake
that.
Bortles, I think, had his
You know,
legendary
there's
moment
a s-
against you guys.
No, Leonard Fournette did. There's a story with that Super Bowl. My brother Joe is a diehard Chief fan, and the first, second, third series of the game, it's 0-0 in the first quarter. TJ Watt gets a strip 6. And I get so fucking hype. I take my terrible talent, I throw that shit across. I'm like, let's fucking go. And the Steelers, I don't know if they scored again that game. And it was like 35-point blowout. It was painful. It was painful.
The next team we're going to talk about in the NFC North are the Detroit Lions, who are favored to win the division. Now, last year they finished with a 9-8 record. Team's first winning record since 2017. If they were to win the division like everyone is projecting them to do, it would be the first division title since 1993. And they have just one playoff win since 1957. I mean, this team is starving. The hype is real. They think it's the year. Do you think it's the year this year, Riff?
You want to talk about the Browns? Heard the shit he just said?
Crazy.
Oh, man, them boys is starving. All right, let's get to it. Jared Goff is a good quarterback, and I think the situation in Detroit was really good for him. You know, they traded him for Matthew Stafford. Rams kind of sold their soul for a ring. Understandable. I'd probably do the same thing. You know, they got their ring. That was cool. Had a great team that year. Jared Goff heads over to Detroit, and coaching staff is good over there. They brought in some offensive pieces. Amon-Ra kind of broke out last year. Jameson Williams, they're waiting for him. Aiden Hutchinson. You know, they got some guys out there defensively, offensively. It's a young team full of talent. Winning the division, I think, like we talked about before in the last segment, in this division, you could talk yourself into any of these teams winning the division. Maybe outside the Bears would probably be the one chance where it's like you're a little bit out of it. But Detroit, Vikings, Green Bay, I think you can talk yourself out of the winning division with any of these teams. And I think Detroit has a big, big chance to win a division. I think this team offensively, you know, even when we played them, the Eagles, we played them in week 2 or week 3, one of those weeks. they were a great offensive team. You know, they were getting back in the game, and I think last year they were a great offensive team. They just have a lot of firepower, and their scheme is great on the offense, and they just know how to work. And defensively, that's where they have to improve. And I think defensively, that's where they need to get better at. I think they need to work on that. But I think this year, for sure, you know, with the way Jared Goff looks, he looks like still a solid quarterback, somebody that can get it done. You got Amon-Ra, you got Jameson Williams. I think defensively they'll make a step. I think you can definitely talk your way in this team winning the division. But I still got Green Bay. But I think this team is going to be one of the most exciting teams in the league. You know, I look at this team like I look at OKC or like I look at the Kings, you know, like a young, fun, exciting team to watch, you know, make some noise, cause some havoc, and I think they're going to be really, really good this year.
The turnaround was quick last year. They go from 25th in score in the top 5. All things considered, you have one of the best offensive minds in the NFL, one of the best offensive lines. You add in Jahmyr Gibbs, and I think he's one of the most underrated backs, especially from a fantasy football perspective, because with him and Demont in the red zone, you know Jahmyr's going to get a lot of the receptions, a lot of the targets out the backfield because they use a top 12 pick in this guy. And he had the elusiveness, the playmaking ability to add that element in the 6 games that Jameson Williams is out. And I truly think this year they're going to take another step forward offensively. With Jared Goff getting more comfortable, more importantly, you're going to have Jameson Williams the entire second half of the season to build chemistry with. But when I look at this Lions team, I do think there is one thing that does hold back their ceiling from being a contender this year, and that would be, to me, the third most important position in football. That would be cornerback. This offseason, they signed Emmanuel Mosley to go out and get Cam Sutton from my Steelers. I look at the landscape of the NFC, and all of the best teams are loaded at wide receiver. The 49ers have weapons galore. The Seahawks have 3 awesome weapons. You look at the Eagles with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, and then a team like the Cowboys adding Brandon Cooks. I look at this Lions team, and it seems like they're very reliant on the front 7 this year. James Houston and Aiden Hutchinson going to their second seasons. They're going to be really damn good, and this can be one of the better pass rushes soon. But it does seem like to me the one thing that they missed an opportunity on was not taking Christian Gonzalez in the first round. I feel like in 2 or 3 years, we're going to look back. Gonzalez is going to be one of the best cornerbacks in the league in New England, and Detroit's not going to have that number 1 press man corner to truly limit an elite wide receiver like A.J. Brown.
They did pick up Chauncey. You know, good pickup.
They did at safety, but looking at the cornerback
he can play
position,
around the field, though. He can play slot corner.
He played damn near everything for us.
They've got a lot of slot corners, and they took Brian Branch out of Alabama,
Brian
too.
Branch is a safety, though. He can play in the box. He's also versatile.
They got versatile guys.
All those
Kirby
guys
Joseph, Tracy Walker. They have a lot of
play in the
versatility
slot.
on the defense.
But I'm talking a number 1 corner to defend one of those top-end wide receivers. And that's where, for me, when I look at them being favorites in this division, I think it's reasonable. But we have to acknowledge here in the draft, they didn't target that key position group. That's a big
You didn't even mention the division. Like, Chicago got DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Minnesota, obviously. So, it's definitely.
Well, that's the expectation now. I feel like it's gone from Lions playoffs to, this is a team that needs to win a game.
Yeah, even dog shit teams like Tampa Bay, you still got Godwin and Mike Evans who's still going to give you fits.
John.
Crying.
I was chuckling a little bit. And the reason why I was chuckling is not because you didn't say anything sound. I think you said a lot of sound things. But to be worried about the Lions defensive backs and not the Vikings, I think that's a little bit unfair, don't you think?
Is it unfair?
Bro, giggled at you.
Cam Sutton and Emmanuel Mosley, when healthy, are better than anybody the Vikings could trot out there. If you have that concern for the Lions.
At corner?
And yes, at
Byron
corner.
Murphy?
Byron Murphy is a solid corner. I think him and Cam Sutton are around the same caliber of corner. I mean, if you're concerned about the Lions and how they stack up against the NFC, I mean, the Vikings corners, it's a much tougher challenge for them.
You want to know the difference? The expectations for these 2 teams.
The expectation is going to stop the receivers from
they're the favorites.
torching them?
The way we talk about the Vikings, it's...
Dude, wait. The Lions are the favorites.
I'm aware.
To the win. So what are
they
you
have
talking
the
about?
same exact...
Because they have more pressure.
They have the same exact... To me, they're the 2 best teams in this NFC North, but they don't have the same exact expectations. The Lions are expected to win a playoff game this year. Clearly, they're a division favorite, and I feel like they have the same exact tools as the Vikings, but Minnesota has a more established wide receiver core with Jettis all by himself, and I think the big thing here, too, is while the offense should be top 5 this year, you can't overlook the fact if Jameson Williams doesn't catch that stride, then you are relying on Amon-Ra and Jahmyr Gibbs, and then you do have to lean on that defense more.
They did that last year, and they were fine. They didn't have Jameson last year. He wasn't productive for them at all, and they were a top offense. The Lions, to me, are a tricky team. I'm not all the way bought into the hype, but I could see where it's coming from. They started 1-6 and they finished the season out 8-2. For me, I feel like they're a bit in the middle. You know, I don't think they'll start as bad as they did last year. I don't think they'll finish as great as they did last year. And the biggest turnaround for them really was the personnel change that they did. There was a couple things. Fewer turnovers, the personnel change, and their fourth quarter production was truly elite. Throughout this season, the Lions were a team that were one of the best first quarter scoring teams. In the second and third, they would cool down, let teams catch up, and they wouldn't finish games in the fourth quarter. But in that second half of the season, they became a top 5 team in terms of fourth quarter offense, and that's why they were able to finish more games. But this team is going from a really weird place, you know, being an underdog to now being favorited. In 31 of their last 34 games, the Lions have been underdogs. They are favored in 11 games in 2023 alone. So in over half the games, they're favored. But to talk about the biggest adjustment, so the Lions early in the season were very hell-bent on using a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets that really wasn't working for them. So they started shifting to more 2-back sets. And now bringing in Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, who I think are upgrades over Swift and Jamal Williams. I think they'll be more efficient. But they were 26th in EPA through week 8 in 2 tight end sets. And they ranked 3rd in EPA per attempt week 10 onward when they shifted to the 2-back sets. The Lions were 0-6 in the turnover battle in 2022. And really, it all hinges on Jared Goff. Jared Goff, I believe, didn't throw a single interception in his last 8 or 9 games. And that was really the biggest difference. Goff's target depth lowered by almost 2 yards throughout the season. He had 1 interception on 178 passes, 12 yards or less, versus 5 interceptions on 71 passes, 12-plus yards through week 8. So that means that Jared Goff is somebody that when he is operating in an offense that is quick pass heavy, you know, he's reading the field quickly, he's making quick decisions, he doesn't make mistakes. It's when he's holding the ball, targeting receivers down the field where those interception numbers spike. And they were 0-6 when they lost the turnover battle. So what Ben Johnson did was he lowered his target depth. Through week 9 onward, the Lions were 34th in average target depth, 33rd in passes thrown, 15 and 20-plus air yards down the field. So Ben Johnson shifted the entire offensive philosophy to making sure Jared Goff is not going to turn over the ball. I think Ben Johnson is going to be a head coach relatively soon, likely after this season. And the defense, the first 7 games, had 2 interceptions versus their final 10 games had 10 interceptions. So you had a marriage where Jared Goff had no interceptions in the last 9 games, and the defense in the final 10 games had 10 interceptions, and they were getting turnovers left and right. I think that's going to come back down to earth. I don't know how much faith I have in Jared Goff to continue to be safe with the ball, because in his Lions tenure, he's had an interception percentage of 1.4%. In his last 3 seasons with the Rams, it was 2.4%. But I think as long as Ben Johnson caters the offense to targeting receivers underneath, Jared Goff will be fine. And targeting running backs more often, I think Jared Goff will be fine. I think the Lions are going to finish second in this division behind the Packers because they have the 11th easiest schedule. They don't play a game with less than 6 days of rest and preparation. And they have 3 Thursday night football games in 2023. So they're going to have 3 mini bye weeks for this staff to prepare for games that are coming up. So for me, would I be shocked if they win the division? No, I would not. If it's not the Packers, it's the Lions for me. And after firing their defensive backs coach weeks 8 onward, they improved from allowing 32 points per game to 20 points per game. And they have some young players that are just getting better. And while, you know, Cam Sutton, Mosley, C.J. Gardner-Johnson aren't superstar household names that are going to change the defense around, I think they have enough talent to make a big enough improvement where it's not going to cost them games. Because when they started 1-6 last year, their defense cost them games. I think they'll be stable, and the offense is going to be an elite offense. You know, barring a Amon-Ra injury, because they have no depth of wide receiver, as long as he's healthy, they're going to have elite offensive output in the passing game.
Not to mention getting Sam Laporta, as a tight end. So they got a lot of offense. They added in more offense in the draft while also, you know, getting some solid pieces in free agency on the defensive end. So offensively, you can expect more firepower from this unit. I think Jameson Williams is going to have like a big year. I think when he comes back, he's engaged. You know, last year, like you said, didn't have much production, didn't play much. But then this year, you know, missing the 6 games, he's going to have a chip on his shoulder to prove that he was one of the best receivers in his class. And I think with him missing in that year, missing those 6 games, he's going to kind of be behind a little bit. So he's definitely going to be coming in with a lot more urgency and a lot more awareness. Like, I want to come in, make big impacts, have big games. So I think he's going to be – and he's going to be huge for what you said, John, and how they spam Amon-Ra. Jameson Williams is going to have to be that number 2 guy to kind of
open up the field
and, like, take that load off of Amon-Ra. And I think that's going to be – that could be the difference between a Vikings team with Jettas who can probably do it himself and Jordan Addison. If you have that number 2 guy, that kind of mitigates all the other things.
No, it could be a perfect duo with him and Amon-Ra.
So Jameer can take some stress off the passing game too. He can have a lot of those targets because he's going to line up in a lot of different places in an offense.
He's explosive, and I trust Ben Johnson to use him. We talked about the Lions' strengths. We talked about things they can improve on. What is their ceiling in 2023?
I think the ceiling for the Lions is
7th seed,
winning the division, winning a playoff game. I don't think they're as good as the Cowboys or the Eagles or the Niners, but I think their ceiling is definitely being that next team after those 3 that can make some noise in the NFC.
I think like it's different because I like in the regular season, I think the ceiling should be win the division. You know, but I think in the playoffs they can win the division and play the Cowboys or the Niners. Like play the Cowboys or the Eagles in the first round. You know, depending on who doesn't win the division, or play the Seahawks. You know, and I think I would pick those teams comfortably over Detroit. So I think regular season, obviously the ceiling should be win the division. I think they're good enough to win that division, and in the playoffs, I think the ceiling for sure, 2 different ceilings, should be win that playoff game. Depending on the matchup, you know, I won't expect too much if they play the Eagles or the Cowboys. You know, I don't expect an ass whooping. I expect them to give a good performance, you know, play well, you know, make it a competitive game. For the Seahawks, I can see them upsetting the Seahawks. You know what I'm saying? That's not a top tier team. That's a team that has more weaknesses than a lot of teams. So I can see Detroit beating them, but that would be my ceiling for sure.
The shootout they had of Seattle, was that week 1, week 3 last year? It was early in the season.
I think it was week 3.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I agree with you guys. The more I look at them and the Vikings, the more I think they're the 2 most similar teams in the NFL. With very similar strengths, very similar weaknesses. One's got slightly more expectations than the other, but that's for due reason.
You think the Vikings and the Lions are similar?
I think they're very similar, yeah.
What type of similarities do you think that they have?
Well, defensively, the Lions have a better front 7 with their young edge rushers. I love the James Houston pick. He was super productive in the second half of last year. And Aiden Hutchinson should have been the first overall pick, either him or Kayvon Thibodeau. So you look at the upside they have, it is more.
You don't agree? The face.
I'm not in total agreement with you. I think there are some similarities, yeah. I think the Lions do have a better coaching staff top to bottom. Kevin O'Connell was great in his first year. I'm not taking away what he did, but I mean, if I'm a team and if I'm hiring between Kevin O'Connell and Ben Johnson, I think I'd take Ben Johnson to
I agree
head
with you.
coach. I think he's a better offensive play caller. Jared Goff, I don't think he's as good as Kirk Cousins, but within that system and what they ask him to do, I think he'll be more efficient. The Lions' offensive line is a top 3 unit in football. They have a legit running game they can rely on. The Vikings with Dalvin Cook couldn't run the ball. With Madison, it'll be much worse. Madison has just not been efficient. And the offensive line is good, but they have some weak points in that offensive line. Like the guard spot is very weak with Ingram and Ezra Cleveland. The interior of the offensive line falls apart.
Right.
The tackle spot is good, though.
It's a comparison that stems from 2 elite offenses with defenses that need to improve. They have similar quarterbacks, very similar. They're both awesome at tackle, and they both have really good weapons. That's where, to me, I think they're very identical.
I think the Vikings have the talent to be an elite offense. I just don't think that they've had the offensive output to the point that I could deem them an elite offense. Like last year, they were a good offense. You know, at times they flashed moments of brilliance, but year long, were they an elite offense? They weren't. Where the Lions, all year long, it didn't matter who they went up against, the output was there offensively. So that's the only thing that I push back on. Where the Vikings, yeah, listen, Jefferson, you know, Kirk Cousins, Addison, Hawkinson, they have talent, but it doesn't show up in the rankings that they're an elite offense. That's the pushback I have to that. Yeah, that's it. The defensive part, you got me, but I think the Lions got a better defense. Now, I want to get into this draft. with the Lions because the Lions got a lot of controversy when they selected a running back and a linebacker in the first round of the NFL draft. But Brad Holmes took over this Lions team in 2021, and his drafts have been pretty good. In 2021, he drafted Penei Sewell with the 7th overall pick. He drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown at pick number 112, the 4th round. And then in 2022, he drafts Aiden Hutchinson. Jameson Williams is still a wait and see, but he has potential. Kirby Joseph was fantastic as a rookie. Malcolm Rodriguez and James Houston, who they found in the 6th round, are both starters for them. James Houston had, I think it was 8 sacks in 7 games for the Lions. And so James Houston was a great player for them. And then this draft, you draft Jahmyr Gibbs, you draft Jack Campbell. In the 2nd round, you draft Sam Laporta, who was Iowa's entire passing offense. And then in the 2nd round, you also draft Brian Branch. The 3rd round, you draft Hendon Hooker. I just think that Brad Holmes deserves the benefit of the doubt when it comes to drafting because he's drafted well for the Lions.
Did you mention Aleem McNeil too?
Aleem McNeil is a good player, yeah. I did not mention him.
I agree with you. It's just bad optics when the positions you target aren't the premium positions. Because the reality is the Lions are a really good team. They're becoming one of the best teams in the NFC. So you're not going to have a top 6 pick again. That was gifted to you from the Matthew Stafford trade. So to me, the criticism is grounded in the fact that, hey, if that's your one giant chance to get a quarterback, a cornerback, one of those guys who takes you to that next level, and you don't pass on that opportunity, you better hope Jahmyr Gibbs is a top 5, top 7 running back in the NFL, which I think he can be, but it's a wait and see.
So Jahmyr Gibbs, had it not been the pick, who are you going with if you're the Lions?
Christian Gonzalez, without hesitation.
You're not thinking about any of these wide receivers?
I would think about the wide receivers like Quentin Johnston, but you also took last year Jameson Williams, and they are similar types of players. I don't know if that was as essential.
Question for you, John, because we've seen the value of the running back position and how they're being treated. Right. Even if Jahmyr Gibbs becomes a top 5, 7 running back, would that hold the same value for where you think Christian Gonzalez would be?
I'm higher on Gonzalez because the team he went to, but the answer to that question would be no inherently.
So even if it would still be a miss to you regardless. Because
it wouldn't be a miss, to be clear. Okay. Like if you get a really good starter in the 1st round, regardless of position, it's a reasonable pick. It's just the top 6. It's like you need to be a star if you're a running back taking that high to make, or sorry, the top 12.
So because my thing is a top 7 running back considered a star nowadays?
I believe so. That's like the Ramondre, Bijan range. I think those guys are true game changers. Yeah.
Ramondre's a star.
Superstar elite. I don't know if Ramondre is that, but he's a good player.
He's a top 10 running back.
If I took Ramondre Stevenson with the 12th overall pick, that's not good value.
No, it's not good value.
I'll be honest, it's not.
Yeah, that's what I asked.
Yeah. Aaron Jones.
Said Bijan. He didn't play a game yet.
Was a top 7 running back without
already.
Yeah,
that's cool.
He's one of the best running back prospects in Stake 1.
Running back value is obviously lowering by the year. So the top 7 running back and a top 5 corner, I think the corner holds more value.
I think there's a gap 6 to 8 because 6 where you get to Jacobs and Barkley, and 7-8 is like Aaron Jones or Ramondre Bijan. So like you get a top 6 back in the league. Is that Jahmyr Gibbs ceiling? We'll find out how they use him. But I think that is the type of player he has to be for it to be warranted.
So looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, the players that went after him, Lucas Van Ness, they have edge rushers, so they didn't need to draft a player like that. Broderick Jones, they're good at tackle right now. Will McDonald, Emmanuel Forbes, Christian Gonzalez. You can make an argument that the corner they should have targeted one of Forbes or Gonzalez, but you can make the argument that the Lions invested in free agency at that position, so they didn't draft it, which is reasonable to a degree. And then they drafted Jack Campbell. Then the picks after that were Kalijah Kancey, JSN, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. These are where the receivers are getting taken off the board. They could have taken
another receiver. It wouldn't have hurt.
For sure. You never have too many. Look, they signed guys in free agency, but the time I watched Cam Sutton guard A.J. Brown last year had 160 yards hung up on his head.
Well, duh.
And Emmanuel Moody, Emmanuel Mosley is coming off a torn ACL, too. Yeah, he is. So those are 2 things to note here when looking at the state of this conference.
And he will play A.J. Brown one more time.
Yeah, I'm telling you, A.J. Brown just physically is too imposing for a guy like Cam Sutton's 5'10", 185 pounds. He can't be that number 1 press corner. He's more of a number 2, a great 3. And that's what he was in Pittsburgh at his best. Not quite that true number 1 because that's where he's limited.
So they have a bunch of number 2, 3 guys.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, Christian Gonzalez, you plug him with Sutton And I'm always I love this secondary at the safeties because they've got really good depth there and versatility. As mentioned with Chauncey on the 1-year deal, you get the Brian Branch, but cornerback is such a big position, man.
I can't believe I missed Alan McNeil, man.
Lame, yeah. He was a good player for them.
He is a good
front
player.
Seven, the guys, they have bugs. He's all right, but he's a former Steeler. That's all things considered an up-and-coming defense.
So I got the Lions at 9-8. Where do you have the Lions at?
10-7.
10-7. So they're winning the division over the Vikings.
No, they're going to be tied, same record, but I think I had them losing both games at first. I had them, now splitting. So Minnesota's slight edge, very slight.
What record do you have for the Lions?
I had them at 8-9.
8-9.
Yeah, I have them tie them.
Yeah,
I think they'll finish second in the division. No, third. Because I think second. I don't know the tiebreaker thing too well. I had the Bears and the Lions finishing the same record.
If they got the same record, it's based on division record.
Okay, so I'm about to go deep into that, but yeah, I have them tying with the Bears.
The Packers are heading into a brand new era. Jordan Love is finally going to start for this team. And I came up with this topic, this little play on Jordan Love's name in the Packers. And it's called the Love Meter. Will the Packers love, like, or dislike Jordan Love's play in 2023? I got the Love Meter right in front of my face. They can see it on the screen right now. We have 7 hearts total, and that's what the Love Meter is going off of. So where do you think Jordan Love will be around? Is he around the 4th heart, which is the middle? Is he heading to the last 7th? I mean, how much would the Green Bay Packers love Jordan Love?
So I'm assuming it's right at this bottom here.
Correct.
So I'm going to go right here. I think he fits in the 4 or 5 range. I hope is that where it's going. Yeah. I think they'll like him. I think they'll like what they see from him. I think they'll like the fact that he's a good game manager. He makes good plays. At times, he can make the big play. I think they'll like the fact that he's a very smart, precise quarterback. They'll obviously have some dislikes. Sometimes he'll probably try to do too much, I guess, or he'll try to make the play that doesn't need to, happen. I think with quarterbacks that have sat for so long, it's kind of you've had this toy sit in this box for so long, and you're waiting to open it. You're waiting to, it's going to be good. It's going to be good, and you're just waiting to open it. I think Green Bay is kind of like waiting and exciting to see, like, what is Jordan Love going to be. And I know the excitement is there because this could be another young top quarterback in this league, and that's great for us, great for the entertainment. So I think I'm more along the 4 or 5 range. I think this team is fully ready to, compete in the NFC and compete in this division. I have them winning the division, at 10-7. I think this team will come out and win this division. I just think Green Bay is too much consistency with them, and I know Aaron Rodgers wasn't good that last year, but I think if Jordan Love can be better than that, which I think Aaron Rodgers wasn't that good, I think Jordan Love can do that, and I think this team can be good. You got some guys coming in year 2, Watson and Romeo, that can be really good players. They drafted Musgrove, who's a tight end. They got some guys on the defensive end in the draft. So they had a solid-ass draft. Defense in the free agency, they didn't do too much. They lost a couple pieces, but nothing too major. I think they didn't add anything too much, so they're relying on the youth and their coaching staff and Jordan Love taking that leap. So I'm here with the 4 or 5 range. I think they'll like him for sure.
It's an exciting but very unique time in Green Bay. Because for the first time in 15 years,
it's been so long.
You're being presented with the possibility you don't have your future franchise quarterback. But one thing you talked about early in the show was, in the limited samples we've gone to Jordan in preseason, bless you, the occasional regular season,
my goodness,
it feels like the Packers are being blessed with another young up-and-coming quarterback with all of the tools to succeed. With Matt LaFleur's play calling, the weapons you add in with Jayden Reed, you mentioned Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, this is one of the more well-rounded offenses in the NFL. It's a decent offensive line to get back to Yard, notably at left tackle. I think on the Love Meter, there'll be a 5 out of 7 this year. There's going to be some highs, some high turnover games. Some weeks you're like, damn, he is a de facto rookie. But there's also going to be moments where you think to yourself, this is the guy. And for Green Bay, all you can ask for is a quarterback with high upside that's willing to learn with a high character. And that was what made him a potential top 10 pick all the way back before his turnover turbulent junior year back in college. I think they do have their guy here. It's just going to be a matter of him staying healthy, some development, and hopefully for the Packers, they can make a push this year at winning the division.
For those unfamiliar with my history with Jordan Love, I've waited 3 years for this moment. When he got drafted, I said, man, this guy has the tools to be special. When I saw he went to Green Bay, I said, this is a perfect situation. He's going to learn so much. He's going to be special. Every time when there was a glimmer of hope he would have a chance, I tweeted, it's Jordan Love time, baby. It's J Love time. Last year, I pitched the idea that Jordan Love should start the season down the stretch instead of Aaron Rodgers. Will the Packers love, like, or dislike Jordan Love? Where's Jordan Love on a love meter? Jordan Love on a love meter is a broke my scale. He's going to be a BMS for the Green Bay Packers. Now, everybody says the Packers are going from Aaron Rodgers, 4-time MVP, to Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers in 2022, this is where he ranked amongst qualifying quarterbacks. 33rd under pressure, 30th in the pocket, 12th on early downs with no play action, 37th on layup throws, 23rd on throws less than 2.5 seconds, 27th outside the red zone, 31st under pressure, 22nd outside the pocket, 28th in play action, 27th while being blitzed, 40th on 3rd and 4th down, 32nd in the fourth quarter, 31st on throws over 2.5 seconds, 35th inside the red zone. I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers is washed. I'm saying he was disinterested. And he was 26 in QBR, which is a metric ESPN uses, that showcased he wasn't phenomenally great.
Pickens was 25.
Despite getting below average quarterback play, the Packers were able to win 8 games. I think they are the most complete team in the division. They have 2 really good running backs in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Christian Watson, weeks 10 and onward in his last 8 games, was on a 1,100-yard pace, had 8 total touchdowns. I think he's going to be a star. And the only personnel grouping that was truly elite offensively for the Green Bay Packers was 12 personnel. And on 12 personnel passes, the Packers had a .18 EPA per attempt, 52 success rate, 7.5 yards per attempt, 70% completion percentage. On passes out of 12 personnel, Green Bay was the #1 most successful passing offense. There's a reason why Matt LaFleur targeted tight ends in the draft, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. It's to go heavier into 12 personnel and to get more output. And with Jordan Love, you're going to have a quarterback who will be bought into the system. Matt LaFleur is a great head coach, but Aaron Rodgers, when he wants his way, he's going to get his way. Last year, in games where the Packers won by multiple scores, Aaron Rodgers was calling out Matt LaFleur's play calling. So there was friction there. And Jordan Love, I think, will be better than Aaron was in 2022. I think Christian Watson is going to be a star. And also, we can't forget about special teams, which is the third phase of football. We got offense, defense, special teams. The Packers, prior to week 8, were 16th in starting field position and 23rd in kick return yards. When they started Nixon from week 8 onward, they were #1 in starting field position and #1 in kick return yards. This is a team that is going to have a lot of talent on defense, 7 first-round picks. If Joe Barry can get better output from this defense with them now healthier, I think that's a big step in the right direction. Their special teams will be able to put their offense in manageable field positions, and the offense, I think, will be good. I think Jordan Love is going to be a really good quarterback. He's cut down interceptions in camp. He's barely thrown any. And whether you see it in joint practices or in the preseason, Jordan Love is playing well. And I think he's going to be a special quarterback, and he's going to show it relatively soon. I really have a lot of belief in Jordan Love and the Packers.
Just spill it. What do you post on Twitter?
What do you mean?
Waiting for you to proclaim it. The Packers are winning the NFC North in 2023.
The Packers are winning the NFC North. I have them winning the NFC North. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers, who wasn't great last year. Jordan Love can be better than Aaron Rodgers was in 2022. No doubt about it.
First off, if there's any franchise that hasn't forgotten special teams matters, it's this team. That cost them a fucking Super Bowl. But I like where you're going. Doesn't this Packers team feel awfully a lot like last year's Seattle Seahawks? You trade Russell Wilson, you trade Aaron Rodgers. Questions emerge with the head coach. Who can they win without that quarterback? That's the real question. Can you do it without them? But you look at the offense, and it's complete. You completely revamped the tight end room, which last year you didn't have tight ends. At the wide receiver position, Christian Watson took him to the second half of the season to refine that confidence, to gain that trust of Aaron Rodgers. Romeo Doubs was hurt. You add in Jaden Reed. And at running back, it is incredibly versatile. And that offensive line, there's a lot of upside here, especially with Bakhtiari as one of the top left tackles in the game. Defensively, I'm still shocked Barry's there, but it's a competent group with a ton of great players.
Yeah.
I feel like this Green Bay team is a little bit overlooked because they're in a transition year, but so was Seattle last year, and we saw them give the 49ers a fight in the first half of a playoff game, which is insane to think about. They won 9 games. They were a huge surprise. And I wonder if Matt LaFleur can make a little bit of a comeback here.
Now, listen
I try to
this.
give a spin. I can't do it off my tongue.
The one instance where we seen the Packers last year go from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love was versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Monday Night Football was it, or Sunday Night Football, one of those. Aaron versus the Eagles, 11 for 16, 140 yards, 8.8 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, 33.6 QBR, 95.8 passer rating. He took 3 sacks. Jordan Love comes in the game, 6 for 9, 113 yards, a touchdown, 0 picks, 12.6 yards per attempt, doesn't take any sacks, 92.9 QBR, 146.8 passer rating. I mean, the one time we saw Jordan Love get in the game for Aaron Rodgers, the offense looked alive. It looked different. And I think the chemistry he's building with Watson, with Romeo Doubs, it's going to show itself in 2023. I really think, like, Jordan Love, I've been waiting for this time. I've been waiting for him to play. And I think he's going to really shock a lot of people.
And you look at this division, there's no elite secondary. The Bears are building something here, but that front 7 is a huge concern. And so if you have 6 games against mediocre defenses at best, that's a great way for Jordan Love to settle in, opposed to being thrown out there primetime on Arrowhead against Steve Spagnuolo, just being completely thrown out to the Wolves. So it seems like this is a smooth transition, too.
It was a COVID week, and he when he faced the Chiefs, they said he was starting on a Wednesday. They didn't have much time to prepare for the starting quarterback job.
Even work with Devontae, because I think Devontae was in protocols that week, so they got no. This might be wrong, but I don't even know if he got to get any reps with him.
And that was the week. And that was the week Chris Jones came back and he changed around their defense in the second half of the year. So for me, like I think the Packers 10-7 is the record I have them at. Listen, this team, the last couple of years of Matt LaFleur, they've been one of the slowest paced teams. So when it comes to the Packers, the games will be close. They will have to rely on defense and clutch drives from Jordan Love. But every game I think the Packers playing, it's going to be a dogfight. And I think they'll come out on top of these games.
I like Green Bay this year. I like what Jordan Love can bring them. I like that they have a consistent running game. I like that they have solid receivers with potential. Defensively, they got some guys. Rashawn Gary. We can't forget Jair Alexander. He's still one of the best cornerbacks in football. So they still got some guys on that team with a lot of talent. So I like this team for sure.
How many teams have we seen in NFL history successfully transitioning from franchise quarterback to franchise quarterback? We've seen it with the Packers.
Didn't the Chargers do it?
The Chargers did do it.
Breeze and then Rivers.
Breeze, Rivers, Herbert. That's a great one.
Cooking.
The Packers, I think, number 1. Going from Favre to Aaron Rodgers. If Jordan Love could be a franchise guy, I think that's number 1. Number 2, although I love the Chargers, I had to cultivate my list based on which quarterback rooms won. So number 2, I have to go with the Patriots. Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady, Mac Jones went to the playoffs.
What about
really Tom Brady?
Where are we ranking the Colts? They went from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck.
I have the Colts at number 5. I have them behind number 3, the Chiefs, going from Alex Smith to Mahomes, and number 4, the Eagles, going from McNabb to Vick to Wentz to Hurts, who Wentz at a time was a franchise quarterback for the Eagles. I think that's 4 quarterbacks you've transitioned into. The Chargers I have at 7. They're behind the Colts and Bengals because the Colts had Andrew Luck.
And then
the Colts had Peyton Manning and then Andrew Luck. And the Bengals, you have Carson Palmer. Andy Dalton was a multiple-time Pro Bowler. Joe Burrow. The Chargers, they got the most talent, like some of the most talent at quarterback, but they're just not able to win.
I think another one, Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson. You got an MVP, a guy who won a Super Bowl MVP from Jersey too. I'm not sure if you mentioned these guys, but to me, the best example is Joe Montana wins 2 MVPs, then has season-ending surgery. He leaves. Steve Young becomes a 2-time MVP. And then when he's gone, Jeff Garcia becomes a 4-time Pro Bowler. To me, that's the one utmost example of a team going from one quarterback to the next. And after Garcia, you draft Alex Smith, who had a rocky first couple of years, but by the end, him and Kaepernick were leading them to a Super Bowl. It's like that's the one team last 30 years they've had so much structure at quarterback.
Number 8, you think the Ravens are over the Dallas Cowboys?
Yes. Dak
Joe
and
Flacco
Prescott.
to Lamar.
You got the value winning. You did say value winning.
But, I mean, it's Tony Romo to Dak. Those are 2 great
Joe
quarterbacks.
Flacco was elite in that playoff run.
Joe Flacco had 1 year, one
That
run.
playoff run was nuts. It's
The word
probably more
really
important.
good would be fair for those two.
It's probably more important than anything Romo
What?
and Dak have ever done.
Tony Romo was really, really good. He wasn't great.
He didn't do anything in the playoffs. You have to do something in
did
the
say
Tony
Postseason.
Romo was a
postseason.
great player, though.
He was a really good player.
No, he was a great quarterback.
But then I feel like you have to put the Chargers over Carson Palmer and Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow's been to Super Bowl.
But then Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl.
But we know what he's been his entire career. He's been mid.
You can't do that though. You can't. He was pretty elite in that run, so you got to kind of put him over.
Listen, I understand, but
It
I
was
think
a
the
great
Cow.
run.
And Tony Romo in the playoffs hasn't done much.
If you're just blank slate, are you gonna go with if you're just a blank slate franchise, are you going with Romo to Dak or Flacco and Lamar, your 2 quarterbacks?
Flacco to Lamar.
That's because of Lamar though, because of how elite he
No,
is.
it's because they have a Super Bowl and the Cowboys have none, and they have an MVP, and the Cowboys have none. Simple.
So wait, in a clean
Come on now.
in a blanket slate, you're
Come on
going
now.
Carson and Burrow over Rivers and Herbert.
I think that's close. That's a close call.
But
But
I
the
think
third
Rivers is
quarterback that
comfortably
makes
better
a
than Palmer.
difference because Andy Dalton had multiple Pro Bowl years with the Bengals, and they went to the
Andy
playoffs. They
Dalton's
didn't
not that
win.
good, though.
But at the time, he
was above
was
average
looked
QB.
at as an above-average quarterback. Carson Palmer, before he tore his ACL, the Bengals were on their way to
But was he
really
on
compete in the
Phillip
AFC.
Rivers level?
I think Carson Palmer at his very best was close to Rivers, but Rivers definitely, I think, is he's a
Okay.
better quarterback than
think
Carson Palmer.
Flacco, the thing that's saving him is the Super Bowl, but that's really important.
But if you have, listen, Rivers is better than Carson Palmer, but if you have Joe Burrow
Okay, so
over Herbert,
what about
I think
Goff
Joe
and then
Burrow's over
Stafford?
Herbert. They just weren't drafted. That's the only thing.
Oh, okay, you're
Yeah,
doing the
it's
straight
a
draft,
little
okay.
bit different.
Well, Goff was, but Stafford wasn't.
Yeah. Stafford was, and it was a trade.
Because that would have been tough. They Super Bowl quarterbacks, both of them. Stafford won. That would have been
The
tough.
Bengals and Chargers is close. I have them at 6 and 7. That's what I have them at. And then the other teams over, the Colts, they won with Peyton Manning.
You got to put Peyton.
They made 2 AFC championships with Andrew Luck. With the Eagles at number 4, Wentz didn't win you it, but he gave you the record. And McNabb went to 1, and Vic was great for you guys. And Hurts just got to Super Bowl. And then 3, the Chiefs. I mean, it's just really Mahomes. Mahomes just.
Alex
clears
was good
everything.
though. Alex was definitely
Alex
good.
was-
That's really it for me.
Shit, if we put fucking Joe Flacco and shit up there, we can put and Andy Dalton. We can put Alex Smith up there.
Alex
for sure.
Smith helped turn a team on the first overall pick into a 10-11 win team, but no receivers. He had Dwayne Blow pass his
Remember when
prime.
Marcus Mariota won a playoff game?
Yeah, versus the Chiefs. That was
Never
heartbreaking.
forget that.
My brother's a Chief fan, so I saw all
How
of
many
those
brothers
years.
do you have? You just
I've
said he was a
got one.
Steelers fan.
I've
You
got-
just told us your brother was a Steelers.
I've got
Did
2
he not
older
say that?
brothers.
You just said you have 1 brother, bro.
What the fuck?
They didn't even say you had 2.
You just said you have 1. This guy's a liar. Which one do you have? You just said just now I
My
have
brother
1 brother.
Joe is a diehard Chief fan, and so in all the Alex Smith years, there
So
was
Nick and Joe.
Nick is not a. He doesn't have a team, so he kind of roots for the Chiefs. If that makes sense.
So
He was
Nick-
a Buccaneer fan a while
Nick,
ago.
Joe, John.
Correct.
Hilarious.
Well, it's actually Joe Nick.
What's hilarious about it, Riff?
no comment. Oh, just
It's because it's generic names.
it is very like you plug it in.
Joe John.
It is you just hit generic and it just simple. I like that though. All right, you're the youngest, right?
Yes,
You did tell us one of your brothers was a diehard Steelers fan.
it's not true.
You said that earlier. You talked about this TJ Watt story and shit.
No, he was diehard
No, that was
Chief
him.
fan.
That was him.
I am the diehard Steeler fan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Come on, Riff. You gotta listen.
You know, Alex
You
Smith.
told us he has 1 brother.
Alex was big, and oddly enough, my brother Joe, shout out to him. He actually helped. He created Alex Smith's foundation, the website itself.
Really?
Yeah. So I got to meet Alex one time. One of the most humble guys.
Fire.
It was actually at MetLife Stadium. They were playing the Jets, Joel, in 2018, and the Jets came back with Fitzpatrick,
I saw
a
that game.
double-digit deficit, and they took away the number 1 seed from the Chiefs. So I'm in there thinking like, oh shit, like Alex is gonna be super pissed you lose that week because like that's pretty huge in the NFL season. One of the most cool dudes. He was bullshitting me about like JV football as a freshman in high school. So maybe it was 2017. It might have been that year instead. But me and him was a surreal experience. And my brother, he actually got flown out to a game back in 2014. And another stupid story. Eric Fisher was the first overall pick in that draft. Struggled big time his first couple of years in the NFL. And so my brother and his friend John are like, dude, this guy, like, he fucking sucks. And right next to them is Eric Fisher's parents. It was super awkward. That's a funny story. But yeah, Alex Smith is fucking great.
So you have a connection to Alex Smith.
I appreciate him. He's a cool
Brody.
dude. And also what he had to overcome in the NFL.
Not for sure.
The coaching in San Francisco to the way his career ended, like he was turning around the Commanders. They were 6-4, 6-3 team, a respectable club, and then he goes down with that injury as a quarterback. To watch that, it's got to be the most frightening thing. It's totally out of your control. He came back. He was helping them get back into the playoffs, so he's definitely a guy I respect for sure.
Alex Smith is an amazing dude. You got to try to get him on a podcast.
You definitely should use your, stain.
Love to.
Call him.
We should ask Alex Smith about Zach Wilson.
That's a great point because he was the one talking about Zach being thrown out there the same way he was with Steve Young a while back.
Steve Young.
I always use that comparison, man. If Alex Smith can do it, Wilson can do it.
Steve Young, man. What a legend.
You know, the one team that has given the Packers issues in the past, you just can't get over them. The 49ers. Whenever the Packers face the 49ers in the playoffs,
whipping their ass.
The 49ers beat the Packers. And we haven't done a schedule prediction for the Niners. So, Riv, I want you to preview the 49ers schedule for me. So, John, you be the counter. Predicting the 49ers schedule in 2023.
Do it.
Riv, first game at the Steelers.
This isn't an easy game per se, but I think Niners should be heavy favorites. I think Purdy struggles in this game, but the defense gets it done. I'll go Niners.
At the Rams.
This one is an easy one. I'll go Niners.
2-0.
Versus the Giants.
I'm thinking about it just because the Giants coaching, but I think the Niners should comfortably win this game, so I'll go Niners again.
Versus the Cardinals.
Another easy one. Damn, Niners again.
Versus the Cowboys.
Now, this game is tricky. You know, Dallas picked up Gilmore. They got Brandon Cooks. Purdy's first real game against a real elite defense. I think this is the Niners' first loss.
Pittsburgh's an elite defense.
At the Browns.
That's another defense. Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. They picked up Zadarius Smith. Depending on how Deshaun looks, this could be a dangerous game. I'm still going to go Niners, though.
At the Vikings.
I'm going to go Niners. That defense has nothing on this offense.
6-1.
Versus the Bengals.
Ooh, this is a trap game. Jamar, T. I'll go Cincinnati.
At the Jaguars.
I think this is an easy one for the Niners. This will be a good game. I think the Jaguars can give them a fight, but I'm going to go Niners.
Versus the Buccaneers.
Easy one, Niners.
8-2.
At the Seahawks.
I think Seattle splits with them, so I'll get Seattle the home one, so they lose here.
At the Eagles.
Ooh, rematch. In Philly, I'm giving Philly the win, so Niners lose.
Versus the Seahawks.
Niners take this one.
9-4.
At Arizona, Collar's likely back for this.
Niners sweeps the Cardinals.
Versus the Ravens.
Ooh, this is a fucking tough one. The problem is Lamar has missed end of back-to-back years. But bearing any injuries, Humphrey should be back by here. I'm going to still go Niners here. I think the Niners take this one.
At the Commanders.
Niners.
And now the last game of the season versus the Rams.
The Niners will probably sit most of these people, but I think the Niners win this game.
Sound 13-4 for San Francisco.
And there's a couple good gimmies in there. They could literally lose a couple of those games.
Nah, it's not a very difficult schedule.
That first five was nuts.
Yeah, they have definitely some toss-ups because you have the Ravens,
yep,
the
Steelers,
Jaguars.
You have to stop.
The Browns
the
is
Bengals
a toss-up.
Is a toss-up. Eagles, toss-up.
The Steelers, yeah, week one, anything can happen. That's
Sure, yeah.
TJ Watt's healthy. Last year they beat the Bengals. I think Pittsburgh's going to be a great game. Pickett versus Purdy, man.
Browns is a toss. It's a lot of good games. Niners, for the most part, though, schedule is a cakewalk. They should easily win 11 games.
I think they should, too. They should win the division, honestly, pretty easily.
Yeah.
Now, on to the last topic of the show, the Chicago Bears. It's time to talk about the last place finished team in 2022. 3-14 season last season. And before we get into the nit and gritty of the Bears, real quick, the Bears had the #1 overall pick in last year's draft. They traded it because they believe Justin Fields can make that third-year leap. And the quarterback they likely were taking was Bryce Young. So which quarterback will have a better career, Bryce Young or Justin Fields?
I'm going to go Justin Fields. I believe in both quarterbacks. Let me start by saying this. I believe in Bryce Young. I love the situation in Carolina. Joel knows this. I have them winning the division. I'm very high on the Panthers. So I believe in Bryce Young. I'm also very high on Justin Fields. I think that Justin Fields has Lamar Jackson-like ability to dominate a game with his feet and with his arm. I think he has that type of dynamic ability. And I think Justin Fields in college didn't show that running game too much. Like, he didn't show that explosiveness. So the fact that he showed that in the NFL means that, to me, he has untapped potential in his ability. Like Bryce Young, I think his potential is extremely high, but his physical traits are not as good as Justin Fields. Justin Fields is built like a running back. He's built like a big physical running back. You know, he has the speed, the explosiveness. He has the arm strength. He just has to become more accurate, more precise. I'm going to go with Fields. I think he has the higher potential, and I think with the way the Bears are, you know, building their team, I think he can get to that.
You make a good point. Fields is built like a tank at the quarterback position. But I look at Carolina, and I said to myself, Frank Reich's going to be there for a long time. With this Bears offense, they're already one of the elite rushing games. You add in DJ Moore, there's a chance the offensive coordinator, the one who's working on Justin Fields, is gone, and Luke Getsy in a year or two. And if you're seeing now with Buffalo, Josh Allen loses that Brian Dable, it's harder to then win the playoffs if you're not sustaining that OC. So I'm going to go here with Bryce Young. I favor the guy who's a better pocket passer with a little bit more stability. And personally with Fields, I do worry a little bit more with his health. Not because of the size, but rather he doesn't protect himself as well. And Fields can take over games as a rusher, but unlike Lamar, he puts his body in the line a lot more. And I feel like that's what it really comes down to for quarterbacks staying healthy. Sure, if you're getting rocked at 5'9", you're going to feel those hits. But we look at the quarterbacks in recent vintage that have all had their career shortened by injuries. It's an RG3, but then Andrew Luck, guys who are huge sometimes, even a Big Ben, a Josh Allen, not as much, but Cam Newton. And those heads do add up when you think you're Superman. So I'm going to lean here Bryce Young, but if Fields figures out that pocket presence, he can be just as good as Lamar Jackson.
The most valuable time in a quarterback's deal is when they're on rookie contract. Teams have to take advantage of that window. Year 1 by the Bears with Fields was wasted. Year 2 was wasted. Year 3, they got DJ Moore, but they were sitting on a lot of cap space still, and they could have made way more moves, but they didn't make more moves. They signed TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, which they're good signings.
They could have kept Roquan for all that.
But they're not going to
yeah.
Those signings not going to change around a bad defense. And for me, I just find it hard to believe that Bryce Young, with the coaching staff that he's going to have in Carolina, with the weapons that they're going to get better from year 1 to year 2. The offensive line is already great. I think the running game will be efficient. If you can add a weapon or two in the next couple of years for Bryce Young, the Panthers are in a better position to take advantage of Bryce Young's rookie deal where Justin Fields, I mean, after this year is one more year, then you got to pay him, and now the roster becomes really hard to build around Fields. So for me, I think Bryce Young is in a better situation, but I don't like either of these options because teams that have traded for number 1 overall picks in the past have not done well. The last time it was done was the Rams for Jared Goff. That didn't end well. Falcons with Michael Vick was a different story because we know he got arrested. But, you know, for me, it's really hard when you're trading up for a quarterback and for you to get back that value. It is. And Bryce Young doesn't have those elite top-end physical traits to the point that I believe in him wholeheartedly.
He's got those intangibles, though.
He does.
He does. I think Fields has intangibles, too.
He does.
Leadership quality and the work ethic is there. Diving into what we're talking about, though, my Chicago Bears. Oh, man, what can you say? I mean, I think we can all agree Fields is fun to watch for sure. He's exciting, fun guy to watch. Shout out to him. Bears fans, I want you to cool down a bit on the pressure. I've seen Fields for MVP. I've seen, you know, the Bears are going to make this to the NFC Championship. I want to cool down on the hype a little bit. You know, I don't want to be one of those guys that think Fields going to come in and throw 50 TDs and have a patch of Mahomes like year 2. I don't want to do that. I think he'll have a good year. I think he can possibly have a great year when you factor in the rushing yards. I think, like you mentioned it, Josh Allen is one of those few guys that we can see take a lot of heavy hits and be okay. And I think Fields has that type of physical body to take heavy hits, but I also think sometimes he can take unwarranted hits that could probably catch you off guard and that can get you hurt. So, and Josh Allen is just one of the rare breeds who has just been lucky as of late. But I think also that situation, if you have a quarterback where he's a running guy and you don't continue to get help, and he has to constantly carry, that can hinder you late. That can hinder you late in your career. But to talk about this Bears team, they had 10 draft picks and 7 of them were on the defensive end. So they went all in, not to mention free agency. They went all in on this defense. They traded for DJ Moore. They traded for Chase Claypool at the deadline, if I'm not mistaken, definitely during the year. Darnell Mooney has always we always looked at him as a solid number 2, never really a number 1, but he's a really good number 2. Cole Kmet had a solid year as a tight end, so that's good to know. They spent Darnell Wright. They got him as an offensive lineman. They got some guys, Nate Davis. They're going to be good. Everything is about improvement from this team. And you mentioned the coaching staff. Luke, you mentioned Luke. He can be gone in a year or 2, but I think if they see improvements from this team, especially this year, insane improvements, and then next year the playoffs, I don't see why he would be gone, especially if Fields really is connected with this guy, especially if Fields is bonded with this guy. And DJ Moore, his contract, they extended him in Carolina, so he's going to be here for some time also. But this team is going to be exciting. It's going to be one of the most explosive teams in the league. It may crack a top 10, top 12 offense in the league. The problem, I think, for this team is the defense. I think this team was in a lot of one-score games. I think Justin Fields, he was pretty much at the bottom of the league in every passing stat. But even with all of that, this team was able to score in bunches. They was able to get some points on the board, whether it be early or late. They was able to do that, and that's something you want to see for a team that won 3 games. So I think this team is going to be good. I have them tying with the Lions in this division, winning 8 games. I think they can make that type of leap. I think offensively, what I'm expecting from Fields, and I just saw the reports, he was having a great joint practice with the Colts. AR was also having a solid practice too. But Fields was having his moments. He had some ups and some downs, but definitely something you want to see from him. If Fields makes that leap that I expect him to leap, along with DJ Moore, you get a number 1 with a young guy. You make that leap, it always looks good. But he has a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3, along with a tight end, a solid running back group with Herbert. So I think that's going to be good. If he can make that leap, this team could definitely win 5 to 6 games. I'm expecting 8 because I think the defense isn't going to be bottom of the league. And I think offensively they can definitely get it going.
Now with the Chicago Bears, they won 3 games last year. Their win total right now, their over-unders at 7.5. I'm going to smash the under on that win total. I think they're winning under 8 games this upcoming season. I think the hype is a little bit too much. They're 26 in roster spending, 7th cheapest offense, 10th cheapest defense. Their big free agent additions were TJ Edwards, Edmonds, and Andrew Billings, who's a pretty good run defender. But really, the secondary is not going to be good. The defensive line last season had a league-low 24.2% pressure rate. They didn't add anybody on that side for me to think that that's going to go up. So if the defense can't get after the quarterback, you're leaving your young corners on an island versus top-end offenses. For me, it doesn't even matter if your DBs take a step in the right direction. If they're in coverage for a long time, they're gonna get scorched either way. And as much as Justin Fields was an elite rusher of the football last year, I think he's the best rushing quarterback in the NFL. The passing numbers and overall the Bears' offense for me, I'm still a bit skeptical on the production that they showed us in a couple weeks. Before I get into the offense, the defense allowed a league-high 463 points. They had a 48.3% success rate and allowed 0.12 EPA per play, worse in the league. So, adding average linebackers is not going to take this defense to being, an average unit. I think it's still going to be one of the worst units in football. But for the offense, Justin Fields last year, 14.7% sack rate, which was 3 times above the league averages at about 3. So Justin Fields still holds on to the ball a lot. The offensive line, although they were top 5 in both pass and rush win rate, it was kind of, I definitely raised an eyebrow on those stats because early in the season, Fields was pressured on about 50% of his dropbacks. The offensive line on film didn't look good. Yeah. So the stats, to me, I'm not really taking those and really making my point on those. Justin Fields had the second highest interception rate last year. And from weeks 1 to 6, this is where we saw some improvement. He took 8 third down sacks, 15% of all plays. From week 7 to 10, he took just 1 sack on 60 plays, 1.7%. There was a 3-week stretch, 4 weeks, I would say, versus the Patriots, Cowboys, Vikings, and Lions, where the Bears offense exploded.
He was great against the Cowboys.
But the issue with the Bears offense is that they score on 70.6% of opening drives, #1 rate in the NFL. Their opening drives ranked #1 in fewest punts, #3 in points per drive, #4 in drives to reach the red zone, 4th in EPA. But after the opening drive in those respective rankings, they were 23rd, 26th, 30th, third most turnovers per drive, and 24th in EPA per play, which shows me that the Bears offense gets figured out relatively quickly. What Luke Getsy does gets figured out relatively quickly. And on early down running back runs last year in the first 3 quarters, they were 30th in success rate, 28th in EPA per attempt, 21st in yards per carry, 31st in explosive run rate. So they didn't have an explosive rushing offense from their running backs. And then on early down quarterback passes in the first 3 quarters, Fields ranked 38th in EPA per attempt, 44th in success rate, 20th in yards per attempt, and 43rd in completion rate. And he was 46th in accuracy. So my question when I look at these numbers is, how much is one player going to change this? How much is DJ Moore, who has been in bad quarterback rooms throughout his career and hasn't been able to uplift those offenses into efficient offenses, how much will his impact in the offense change it to the point where it is a high-scoring offense in more than just a 3-week stretch? Because after that 3-4-week stretch when they faced the Cowboys, Vikings, and Lions, the Bears didn't score much points, and even with Justin Fields in the offense, they were getting stopped. So for me, I'm skeptical on the couple of weeks of sample size where they looked amazing, if that's going to translate for an entire 17-game season. That's my biggest question.
There's not a bigger X factor in the NFL than the Chicago Bears. And what it reminds me a little bit of is last year's New York Jets. You don't know about the quarterback. You have a defensive-oriented head coach who had the worst defense in the NFL last season. So there are questions about Robert Saleh. Can he lead an elite defense? The Jets add in Ahmad Sauce Gardner, TJ Reed, and Quentin Williams took that huge lead. He was already a great player. With this Bears team, they didn't do that defensively. They've got a good young secondary, Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon. They added, he struggled last year, but then Jalen Johnson. It's a good group. Eddie Jackson. It's the strength of this team. Mm-hmm. But as you noted, last year they could not stop the run. They didn't generate much pressure. And it feels like it's not the Justin Fields breakthrough that this team needs to actually take that huge step forward. It's the fact the defense has a lot of questions. But like the Jets, who add in Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, this Bears team has an elite rushing game between Roshan Johnson, Deontay Foreman they added, and then Khalil Herbert, who is one of the most explosive backs in football. Backs. And then you add in DJ Moore in that #1 wide receiver.
Is that cap?
No. I'm not laughing. I'm laughing at a. Never mind.
Okay. The point is,
You say a word wrong or some shit?
the Jets and Bears are two teams where it's not just about the young quarterback taking that huge step forward. And so I look at Justin Fields. In theory, he's basically a baby Lamar Jackson. But as you noted, a 14% sack rate is insane. He had the worst pocket presence in football last year, which was compounded by the inconsistent accuracy. He's got a good arm. He can zip shots down the field. And there are moments where he can fit a ball into a tight window. He can make pretty good throws outside the numbers. And I feel like the rushing ability allows him those opportunities down the field. But it is the touch. It is the consistency of the accuracy. And I'm like, damn, this is the make or break a year for Justin Fields. If he hasn't developed that feel in the pocket, which is often a skill that you're born with, the Bears might be looking at this quarterback situation next year under a totally different light, the way the Jets are and the way they were this last spring. And so I don't know about this team. I just don't think the Bears' hype is reasonable right now. But that being said, they're going to be one of the most fun offenses in the league even still. And I expect them to be a lot better than 3 wins. Because last year they weren't a real 3-win team. They were better than that. Yeah. I think reasonably they're 6-7 wins. But I don't know if it's time yet to put playoff expectations on them.
This is probably one of the biggest boom or bust teams in the NFL for sure. I mean, this team, even Justin Fields, one of the biggest boom or bust quarterbacks. I think a lot of the problems he had, like holding on the ball for too long, that can attribute to him doing that, but also receivers not getting open. Sure. And I think as much as people, it's not just him. DJ Moore is not just the one person. DJ Moore shifts Darnell Mooney to a number 2. Who Darnell Mooney now shifts Chase Claypool to a number 3. Like, it's the food chain starts to look more reasonable. You don't want to walk into weeks and equal St. Brown and Chase Claypool, your fucking guys. You're like, oh, shit. All right, well, we're good. Just, so it's like now you have Herbert, Roshan, Deontay Foreman, Justin Fields is a part of a running back. You got to throw him in there as a 4-man tandem in a running back situation that could work. You may have a solid offensive line. So it's like all the little things have to come together. But the defense, like we mentioned, that's going to be the question. Can this defense be situational? Can it get some stops when it needs to? Can it hold up for a quarter or two? Can it make the plays it needs to? Can it have some turnover plays? Can it get to the quarterback? Like, certain things like that, can it do? And if it does it for a few times here and there, I mean, we saw last year, if the defense made a couple stops here and there, this could have been from a 3-win team to a 5-win team or a 6-win team if the defense just made some stops, situational work, things like that. So the offense, I think we can all agree, will probably make a modest leap, but the defense is where you need to make that big leap for this team to really be impressive.
There were 1-7 in one-score games. I think that, there's some positive regression that can go into that number. But even if they win, let's say if they go 3-5 or 4-4 or 4-4 in those one-score games, we're talking about a 7-win team around there if they're 500 in one-score games.
They were the literal opposite of the Vikings then.
They were.
That's insane.
And 7 wins is good because if you think about 7 wins, you get 7 wins. There could be maybe 1 or 2 games that you could sneak in. Could be 9 or 7 is you want to get to 7 because you want to just see improvement. You don't want to be another. And even if it's 7 wins, like it could be like the 7 wins, but all the other losses were good losses, like calm losses. You were competitive. That's what you want to see from this team. You want to see some competition. You want to see some edge from both sides. The defense came out on multiple times last year. It admitted they let the team down. They let the offense down. They didn't show up. So you expect to see that drive, that edge from this team coming up this year.
Like, we look at the 3-4 week stretch versus the Patriots. Week 7, they scored 33 points. Week 8 against Dallas, they scored 29. Week 9 against Miami, they scored 32. Week 10 against Detroit, they scored 30. Week 11, they scored 24 points. And these are games with Justin Fields, by the way. 24 points. Atlanta's defense is one of the worst in the league. At least last year it was. And Week 12 versus the Jets, he didn't play. Trevor Siemian played in that game. But Week 13, this is where the production starts to fall off. Yep. These are all games with Justin Fields. Week 13, they scored 19 points against Green Bay. Week 15, they scored 20 points against Philadelphia. Week 16, they scored 13 against Buffalo. And the last game Fields played in, Week 17 against Detroit, who in Week 10, they scored 30 points on. They just managed 10 points on them. So that shows you that the Lions, after facing them a second time, adjusted. And Fields completed 33% of his passes in that game. 7 for 21.
And those games against elite defense in the regular season, Buffalo, Philadelphia, you want to see changes in those games. You want to see a closer game, a game where they're in the fight. You don't want to see 10 points, 19 points. That's disgusting.
So this is a legacy season for DJ Moore. In that 4-week stretch you alluded to, they had to average 240 rushing yards, 240 a game to win and score 30 points.
I don't know if Darnell Mooney missed some time last year, too.
Yeah,
so I don't even know if he.
Second half virtually.
Yeah.
I just really don't think Darnell Mooney's that good.
No, he's all right.
I think he's like a wide receiver 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think he's a low end, too.
I think he's a wide receiver 3.
I didn't say it.
I like Darnell. He's cool. He has a nice name.
And Chase Claypool had like 100 yards in like 7 games.
One game they fucked him. I forgot which game it was. It was like late and Fields threw it to him. It was like a clear passing interference, and they didn't give him the call. I forgot which game. I think it was against Detroit.
Did he get an Instagram picture?
Yes.
Good. Perfect. At least he got that.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, the Bears and the Packers are the 2 boom or bust teams in the NFC North. Right now, they're betting odds. The Packers and the Bears on multiple sports books. There's times where they're even at plus 400. The Packers are a better value bet than the Bears. Both at over under 7.5 wins. The Bears, compared to roster side by side, the Packers are better across the board. If the Bears actually take this enormous leap, Justin Fields is going to have a Josh Allen type of leap, which the Bills had more offensive personnel than them. They had better across the board. Their defense was elite. They made the playoffs. Like, for me, those Josh Allen leaps are very rare. They are very rare.
Because there's only one Josh Allen.
There's only one Josh Allen. And, you know, there haven't been many quarterbacks that have had this high of a sack rate, have been this inaccurate, that turn around. That being said, I love Justin Fields' work ethic, and I think he's capable. But that's why, to me, I'm very skittish on putting my money on him for an MVP or the Bears to win over 8 games or the NFC North. To me, that just seems far-fetched.
I agree. On a positive note,
I'm
here.
here.
Roshan Johnson.
Roshan is good.
I'm here. I'm here for it.
I think it's going to be one of the best running back rooms in the league. Hot take.
Chicago?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because they have Fields.
Well, obviously, that helps a lot.
He's him alone can be the best running back room in football.
I mean, basically. Last year, they were number 1 in rushing.
And
If
he
they weren't
did that
one
in
there,
like,
too, with the
I think he
Falcons
did
one.
in like 9 to 10 games. If I'm not mistaken. He didn't play the full doing
When
that
I
the
say
full
that,
season.
it's not about the quarterback as much. Like, Roshan was one of the best running backs in football, playing behind the best running back in the nation. And then Khalil Herbert's been waiting for that opportunity for years now to be that kind of future role. Deontay Foreman, he filled in admirably for Derrick Henry 2 years ago on a team that
For CMC.
and
with the
CMC too.
Panthers.
That's a great point. So all of these running backs bring something a little bit different to the table. They're all young. They've got a lot of juice, and they're going to greatly benefit from probably the best rushing quarterback in the football.
Sounds fun.
Roshan Johnson, to me, I think he's a star. I do think
You
he's
think he's gonna get he's the second string or third?
I think he's right now he's third string. I think he'll work his way up, though. You know, with his break and tackle ability, with his explosiveness, I think he'll work his way up.
How is his pass blocking? You saw more from the name.
It's good.
If he can pass block, he's on the field third down, and he's going to get a lot of reps.
That's really the key right there.
Yep.
If he can, you know, be better than those other guys at that. Now, the Bears traded the first overall pick to the Panthers. I want to go over their schedule because the Panthers, despite trading up for the first overall pick, I think their roster's in a better position to be better than the Bears next season, and we'll see where their record is.
Also, they have an easy schedule.
Yeah. So, John, can you pull up the Panthers schedule for me and let me try to rattle off their schedule
Here we go.
and see how many games they win? Riv, you be the counter for
I'm
me.
here with you.
Okay. Predicting the Panthers' 2023 record, Joel, week 1, Carolina's going to Atlanta.
I think that's a loss. Week 1 loss.
0-1.
Week 2, they host the Saints.
Ooh.
I think the Saints are going to come out hot. You know, we have to understand, rookie quarterbacks struggle to begin the year. It's not until the second half of the season where they start to get better, so I'll go a loss here.
Monday
0-2.
night. Week 3, they travel to Seattle.
Yikes.
You know, I think Seattle is tough to play there, the 12th man. I'm going to go with Seattle.
0-3.
Week 4, they host the Vikings.
The Vikings don't have a very good defense. I think the Panthers have a really good.
Is this Bryce's first breakout game?
Yeah, I think versus the Vikings is Bryce Young's first great game against a defense
Here we
that's not
go.
very good.
Week 5, travel up then to Detroit.
I'm going to go with the Lions here.
1-4.
They then go to Miami week 6.
I got to go with the Dolphins.
1-5.
After the bye week, they host the Texans, Stroud versus Young.
I love that.
I'm going with the Panthers here.
2-5.
Then they play Indianapolis at home.
I like the Panthers here.
Back-to-back rookie quarterbacks. 3-5. I like
week
that.
10 at
Oh,
Chicago.
before you continue, does Bryce outplay Stroud and AR?
I think he outplays both of them. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so crazy how bad their weapons are in
The
comparison to
only-
the Colts.
The only I think AR might have the better game because of what he can do as a rusher, but also the Colts have better receivers. Michael
By
Pittman,
Alec.
Alec
It's really
Pierce,
just
Josh.
Michael Pittman for sure.
Josh Downs. I think
Alec
their
Pierce
receiving
is
course is gonna be good.
Fucking good.
Yeah, he is.
He's a big time player in the field. All right, next up,
So what are we at now?
You're 3-5.
3-5. Okay.
week 10, they travel up to Chicago.
This is going to be a toss-up game, and this is exactly how I started it. You know, we're back full circle. At Chicago, I don't believe in the Bears' defense. I think the Panthers match up well against the Bears. I'm going with the
Horn
Panthers
versus
here.
DJ Moore.
Week 11, they host the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, that's a loss.
4-6.
Week 12, they go to Tennessee,
I think that's a loss, too.
4-7.
then travel down to Tampa Bay.
I think that's a win.
5-7.
Week 14, they then go to New Orleans.
At New Orleans, that's going to be a tough place to play. I got a loss here. I got the Saints sweeping the Panthers.
5-8.
Week 15, home versus the Falcons.
I got them beating the Falcons here.
6-8.
Week 16, home versus Green Bay.
I got Green Bay.
6-9.
At Jacksonville.
I got this as a loss too.
6-10.
Wow. And week 18, they host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So win.
7-10. It's a nice record for a young team with a rookie quarterback. It's not bad. That's calm.
It could go 10-7. It could go 7-10.
No, honestly, there's some 50s. There's some 50s in there.
Look at New Orleans.
Some. Now you gotta really
I
look
gave them
for
a
'em.
3-game win streak versus
Chicago.
the Texans, Colts, and Bears.
That can very well happen. Could very well be a 3-game losing streak.
I've got them
could.
winning 9 or 10.
So you got them winning Division 2?
I do. Them and the Falcons are going to be 1-2.
We're here.
Damn,
Good team.
I'm gonna be honest. I have the Falcons winning the division. Second place is the Saints. After seeing the Saints preseason week 1,
Scream.
Saints need some respect. That's all I'm gonna say.
You didn't put the respect there.
I don't have them third in the division.
I have him second.
That's pretty reasonable.
He has him third?
He has them third. Yeah, he has the Panthers, Falcons, and then
I have Panthers, Saints, Falcons.
The Saints are a mid-team.
They're all mid teams.
W fan base, great city, average football team.
You been in the city?
I haven't. That's one of the places I desperately want to go to.
Okay, John. Good. 21. Get there. So you can do what you do.
But yeah, no, they're so bad.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Pick a Side podcast. Drop your predictions for the NFC North down below. Who's going to win a division? The Packers, Vikings, Lions, or the Bears? You got something to say, John?
End the show with a banger, John. Give us a quote.
George Pickens, the next Des Bryant.
Who the fuck cares?
You can follow us on Twitter at Pick a Side Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at Pick a Side Podcast. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.